Chapter 140. I want to play Lu Bang. I want to play Xiangyu. Xiangyu is a great hero. Jingdong, you idiot. Don't play Xiangyu. Xiangyu wants to commit suicide. After hearing Fang Yan say that today's lesson was banquet at Hongmen, the students' interest soared. This was especially so for the boys, who didn't have a heroic dream of leaping onto roofs and vaulting over walls, who didn't want to be an invincible general on the battlefield. Fang Yan waved his hand, signaling for everyone to quiet down. After waiting for everyone to fall silent, he said, "Previously, I let everyone preview this text. Now, everyone should have some understanding of the background story of Banquet at Hongmen, right? We'll use the same method we used before to teach the lesson. There are a few important characters in this lesson that need to be played by students. The first one is Xiangyu. Who will play this role?" Tangqing. A girl jumped out and said. It seemed that she was a hardcore supporter of Rosefinch. Why Tangqing? Fang Yan asked with a smile. Because Tangqing is handsome. Xiangyu is also handsome. The girl said without hiding it. If it were another teacher, they would never say something like this. However, because Fang Yan was Fang Yan and because Fang Yan could understand and tolerate them easily, they were so frank and direct. Fang Yan nodded with a smile and said, "Okay. Then Tangqing will play the role of Xiangyu, the first teacher of Class 9. The other students will also have a chance." "Mr. Fang, can I play Lu Bang?" Li Yang asked carefully. Zheng Guodong asked for leave, but his two hardcore supporters, Qin Tao and Li Yang, came to class early in the morning. If nothing happened between the three of them, Fang Yan would not believe it. He looked at Li Yang and asked, "Does everyone agree?" No one said anything. Disgust prevented them from saying yes and fear prevented them from saying no. Li Yang's face turned red. He looked at the students of Class 9 and said, "I know everyone doesn't like me. I also know. I know that we have indeed done a lot of things to make everyone hate us. But I will correct it. I will definitely correct it. Please supervise me. I want to play the role of Lu Bang. I will definitely do my best. Please believe in me and support me." After Li Yang finished speaking, he bowed deeply to the audience. This apology was very sincere. Pa. The students were easily moved. After Li Yang stood up, they gave him a warm round of applause. Fang Yan nodded with a smile and said, "It seems that everyone agrees that Li Yang will play the role of Lu Bang?" Fang Yan was very pleased. A prodigal who repents is more valuable than gold. To be able to turn a bad student into a good person, this is the wish of every teacher. He knew that another student had fallen for his black trousers. Agreed. The students shouted in unison. Fang Yan smiled and then asked for everyone's opinion. He chose Zhang Liang, Fan Kuai, Fan Zeng and several other main roles. "Teacher, what about Yuji?" a boy shouted excitedly. "Yuji has no part in Banquet at Hongmen," Fang Yan said. "Teacher, why don't you choose one? It's not tiring to act with a man and a woman," the boys insisted. Even Tangqing's eyes lit up. He said, "Teacher, you'd better choose one. She's still needed for the later scenes." Fang Yan thought for a moment and shouted, "Qin Yitian." Standing behind the crowd, Qin Yitian said calmly, "I won't play Yuji." Tangqing's face suddenly turned red, and his expression was gloomy and disappointed. Qin Yitian's answer was as if he had refused him on the spot. "Why not play Yuji?" Fang Yan asked. After thinking for a moment, he quickly said, "Forget it. Just pretend I didn't ask and you don't have to answer." Fang Yan felt that he was too smart. He didn't expect that Qin Yitian was not a girl who liked to play cards according to common sense. She didn't want to let him get what he wanted at all. Qin Yitian pursed her lips and smiled. "Because you're not Xiangyu." The students of the 9th class cheered and Tangqing felt as if someone had stabbed him in the chest. He was dripping with blood. Fang Yan frowned and said with a serious expression, "Student Qin Yitian, it's class time now. Don't joke around." Without waiting for Qin Yitian to refute, he scolded the other students and said, "Don't make trouble. If the teaching office hears this, our class will be deducted again. The scandal must be strangled in the cradle." Fang Yan felt that it was time for him to have a good talk with Qin Yitian. "Okay, let's start the class now," Fang Yan said aloud. At this moment there was a noisy sound of footsteps outside. Then a large number of students in Rosefinch secondary uniforms rushed over. It's Class 1. What are the people from Class 1 doing here? Look at the books in their hands, they're also here for class." "I see Zhang Yu. They're also in Chinese class. Why do I feel that they're not friendly? Fang Yan also saw Zhang Yu. Zhang Yu was the Chinese teacher of Class 1. As a teacher of the top class of Rosefinch High School, a private school, Zhang Yu was quite proud. He graduated from a famous school and was the first batch of specially hired teachers of Rosefinch Secondary. He used to lead a class that dominated the whole school with excellent results for 3 consecutive years. There were countless students who were admitted to famous universities. Therefore, he was transferred to the top class of the whole school as a Chinese teacher. In response to the school's slogan, the genes of a famous school should be grasped from the basics. Since he became the Chinese teacher of Class 1, the Chinese results of Class 1 had always been ranked first in the school's overall and average scores, far ahead of the second place. Class 1 was the top class and also the devil's class. There had never been a class that could challenge the authority of Class 1. It was also because of this that Zhang Yu had always been the treasure of the school. He was a capable teacher in the eyes of the leaders and a high-scoring machine in the eyes of the students. However, since Fang Yan came, his limelight was completely overshadowed. Even Class 1's limelight had been snatched away by Class 9. Take the incident of receiving the Wu Ren delegation as an example. Class 1 was responsible for receiving the guests. This was a tradition and habit of Rosefinch High School for many years, but this year the rules were changed because of the arrival of Fang Yan. Before, they fiercely opposed it because they had the mentality of watching a good show. When you're embarrassed, invite us to clean up the mess. At that time, the school leaders would understand who the real elites were. Unexpectedly, the students of Class 9 not only successfully completed the task of receiving the guests, but also achieved an unexpectedly good result. In the words of Headmaster Lu Chaoge, it was the best in history. The best in history? These words were simply a slap in the face. They had been doing it for so many years, but they were overthrown and defeated in one day. If someone could achieve a best in history in 1 year, then what had their Class 1 done for so many years? Zhang Yu was jealous of the culprit Fang Yan, and even the students of Class 9 were not pleasing to the eye. All along, he had been looking for an opportunity to beat Fang Yan's arrogance. Yes, in his heart, Fang Yan was indeed the typical representative of arrogance. Disrespect for elders, lawlessness, greed, lust, and not bathing all year round. When he heard that Fang Yan asked the students of Class 9 to gather at the Taekwondo dojo today, he immediately rushed over with the students of Class 1. Whether it was a mule or a horse, it was a competition. He wanted to knock down Fang Yan face to face so that he would not always use those non-mainstream things to attract attention and achieve the purpose of self-promotion. He had confidence in Class 1, and Class 1 would never lose to anyone. Zhang Yu was in his 30s and he could become the backbone of the teaching team, which could be regarded as a young and promising person. He wore gold-rimmed glasses, had short yellow hair, and gave off a strong sense of scholarly aura. Fang Yan knew Zhang Yu. Seeing him coming in behind the students of Class 1, he smiled and asked, "Miss Zhang, you also have class today?" Zhang Yu glanced at Fang Yan and said with a blank expression, "If I don't have class, will I run around with the students? I'm not as daring as some people who do whatever they want." "Haha, I guess the person Miss Zhang is talking about must be me, right?" Fang Yan said without modesty. "Whoever says it will understand." Zhang Yu also smiled. But it was a sneer. He really didn't hide his disgust for Fang Yan. Fang Yan pointed at the students of Class 1 and asked, "Miss Zhang also has class here?" "Yes," Zhang Yu said with absolute certainty. "You also learned banquet at Hongmen?" "I happened to learn this article," Zhang Yu said. He pretended to be surprised and looked at Fang Yan and asked, "Mr. Fang, are you also going to take the students to learn this article?" "Yes, we are going to learn this article," Fang Yan said. "Then we really came at the right time," Zhang Yu said. "It's really a coincidence," Fang Yan said. "Miss Zhang came at the right time. It's really great." "It's great?" Zhang Yu was puzzled. "What is this guy talking about? Doesn't he know why I came here?" "Miss Zhang, if you didn't come, I was still worried about how to teach this banquet at Hongmen, well, so that everyone will have a deeper understanding of these 3 words. Now this problem is solved." Fang Yan grinned and said to the students of Class 9 loudly, "Students, everyone should feel it. This is the real banquet at Hongmen. Time passes, the heroes and artifacts in the book are too far away from us. But as long as we have a pair of eyes that are good at discovering and a mind that is good at thinking, we will know that the truth has always been in front of us." "What does he think he is?" As a tool to understand the text? As the culprit to restore the scene of the banquet at Hongmen? After listening to Fang Yan's words, Zhang Yu almost vomited a liter of blood and fainted. Chapter 141. A philosopher once said, "What lessons can we learn from history? The only lesson we can learn from history is that we can't learn any lesson from history." Fang Yan used this as a pretext to continue educating his students. Why did Xianxia commit suicide at the Wu River? How could a man like Liu Bang defeat the overlord and seize the world? The banquet at Hongmen was a key turning point. Let's think about it. If Xianxia had chosen to kill Liu Bang instead of being merciful, would fate have been reversed? Would history have been rewritten? Would the people standing here today still be the people standing here today? Fang Yan looked at Xianxia and said, "Miss Zhang, since you also want to lead the students to learn the chapter of the banquet at Hongmen, why don't we discuss? If you were Xianxia, would you choose to kill Liu Bang at the banquet at Hongmen?" "Of course," Xianxia said grumpily. "Only an idiot wouldn't kill him." Anyone with common sense and history knew that if Xianxia had killed Liu Bang at the banquet at Hongmen, then with Xiangyu's strength and reputation, it would have been the Xiang family who conquered the Qin dynasty. It was a pity and a pity. Fang Yan looked at Xiangyu thoughtfully and said, "I think so too." "What kind of look is that? What kind of look is that? Does he think I am Xiangyu? Does he think I am Liu Bang?" Fang Yan frowned and said, "Miss Zhang, as teachers, you and I should set an example and pass on the truth, kindness and beauty in our hearts to our students, so that they can learn knowledge and skills and also be moral and cultured people. Isn't it inappropriate for you to call me by my name? I can call you Octopus Monster, but will I do that? Obviously not. I am cultured, so I will only call you Miss Zhang." "Fang Yan, you have gone too far." Zhang Yu was really mad. In the past he had only heard that Fang Yan had a vicious mouth and an eccentric personality. Class 1's Chen Dehai was such a powerful figure, but he was ultimately bullied into a sorry state by him. Even the honor of Class 9's homeroom teacher was stolen by him. Now that he had personally experienced it, he realized that he was indeed cunning and hard to deal with. "Look, you're calling me Fang Yan again. Don't worry, I'm a well-mannered person. No matter what, I won't call you Octopus Monster." Fang Yan said with a smile. "Miss Zhang, I just don't understand. I'm just putting forward some requests and suggestions from a fellow practitioner. I hope that we, as teachers, can pass on our positive side to our students, pass on our true, kind and beautiful side. Is there anything wrong with this? How did I bully others? Ask everyone, how did I bully anyone? Whether it was the students of Class 1 or Class 9, everyone felt that Fang Yan was bullying them. However, it was really difficult for them to explain how Fang Yan bullied people, because everything that Fang Yan said was correct. Even if you bring the lawsuit to the school's leaders, you can't find any fault. Although there were many leaders behind Zhang Yu who appreciated him, Fang Yan also had the strong support of Lu Chaoge. When the two tigers fought, Zhang Yu really couldn't guarantee that he would win. Zhang Yu became calm after his anger. He knew that his current situation was very dangerous. He had completely entered the atmosphere and rhythm created by Fang Yan. He was vilifying himself and turning into a madman without wisdom and quality. He couldn't do this. The war hasn't really started yet. "Mr. Fang." Shouting these 3 words, Zhang Yu's stomach twitched. "Do you know how many virtues there are?" As soon as Zhang Yu asked this question, Fang Yan knew his little calculation in his heart. This idiot really didn't have any experience in fighting. "I don't know which virtues it is exactly, but I know that the first virtue is the virtue of speaking." "I don't understand. I was just trying to persuade Miss Zhang to be positive and be a good example to the students. How did it become bullying? Miss Zhang slandered a good person like this. Isn't this not having the virtue of speaking?" Fang Yan asked with a puzzled face. "Zhang, you really wanted to vomit blood this time. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this. The plot should be like this." After he asked this difficult question, either Fang Yan answered that he didn't know, then it would be the glorious moment for him to show his profound knowledge and improve his self-pretentiousness. Even if Fang Yan answered, it didn't matter. He could use this as a pretext to say that Fang Yan had a vicious heart and a cheap mouth. How could such a character quality be a good example to others? He had buried the pit and was ready to wait for Fang Yan to jump in and bury him. However, why did he have a feeling that he had put his head into the pit? "Change it. Fang Yan, you bastard. Hurry up and change the way you answer. Zhang Yu's heart was like a prairie with 10,000 grass mud horses running wildly. He clearly said that he wouldn't be angry, but in less than a minute, Zhang Yu was so angry that his whole body was trembling. He had the urge to turn around and leave. He couldn't tremble and he couldn't leave. Even if he lost, he couldn't lose. Mr. Fong, stop talking nonsense. Why do you have to be so eloquent? So what if you win? The school won't give you a trophy. Zhang Yu said with a sneer. We are here to teach, not to quarrel with you. Zhang Yu waved his hand and shouted, bring it in. As he spoke, a few boys carried a few big wooden boxes in. Change clothes. Zhang Yu shouted. So the students immediately opened the boxes and took out one robe after another from the box and put them on. Fang Yan was envious and asked, Miss Zhang, where did you get these clothes? I borrowed them from the drama club. Zhang Yu said loudly. He felt that he finally had a chance to hold his head high. Very good. Fang Yan praised sincerely. I didn't think of borrowing clothes from the drama club. Zhang Yu sneered and said, not everyone can borrow them. That's true. Fang Yan nodded. I heard that the drama club's clothes are very precious. It's very difficult for ordinary people to borrow them. Miss Zhang is the one who has the face. Zhang Yu stared at Fang Yan warily and thought, what trick is this guy playing? Is he trying to cheat people again? Shall we use this place first? Zhang Yu pointed to the spacious taekwondo club and asked. Well, Huang Haoren stopped him. We came here first. Why should you use it first? Exactly. There should be a first-come, first-served order, right? If we can't use it, you can't use it either. Before Fang Yan had time to speak, the students of the 9th class began to fight back. Do you have the right to speak? Zhang Yu said angrily. I'm discussing with Mr. Fang. Why are you in such a hurry? Since when did you have the right to make decisions? Fang Yan waved his hand and said, Miss Zhang, that's not right. Now it's a legal society. Every child has the right to speak freely. They can express their thoughts and prayers reasonably. This is what we should support and encourage. Right? How can you say that they don't have the right to speak? Fang Yan, don't use these students as a shield. Zhang Yu wanted to point at Fang Yan's face and scold him. Are you done or not? Can't we fight with real guns and live ammunition? Why are you pretending to be a good teacher and a good person? What truth, kindness, and beauty are you promoting? Do you have these things? Teacher Zhang, if you put it this way, then I am even more confused. There are no arrows in front of me. Why do I need a shield? I'm asking you. My students are ready. Can we use the venue? Zhang Yu felt that it was getting harder to breathe. It was as if he couldn't hold on any longer. Sure. Of course. Fang Yan said indifferently. He waved his hand at his students and said with a smile, since the students of the 1st class are willing to set an example for us, then we should study hard. This will also deepen our understanding of the text. This is not a bad thing. Am I right? Hearing Fang Yan say this, although Huang Haoren and the others were angry, they could only move away from the venue. A victorious smile appeared on Zhang Yu's face as she said, Mr. Fang is the one who knows when to advance and retreat. This has nothing to do with knowing when to advance and retreat. Fang Yan said with a smile. I'm a teacher. I hope that my students can learn more. If they can have such an opportunity to appreciate and observe, I think it will be meaningful for them. So I agreed. Hee hee. Zhang Yu sneered and waved his hand. Everyone get into position. Rehearse according to the script we discussed before. We must return to the real feast at Hongmen scene. The students of the 1st class agreed and immediately began to move. Tangqing stood behind Fang Yan and looked at the busy students of the 1st class. He asked with an unfriendly expression, Mr. Fang, do we really have to give up the venue? We really have to. Fang Yan nodded. They're going too far. Tangqing said with a sneer. He was originally a member of the 1st class. He was transferred from the 1st class to the 9th class because of Qin Tian. He understood the thoughts of the students of the 1st class and Zhang Yu too well. Zhang Yu is coming for you. I know. Fang Yan nodded. You know, Tangqing looked at Fang Yan in surprise. You know, but you still let him get away with it? Then what should I do? Fang Yan grinned. Scold him, or should I say beat him up? I believe that he can't beat me in a scolding match. He can't beat me in a fight. However, no matter if we scold or fight, I lose and he loses. We both lose face in front of the students. I'm not talking about my face or his face. I'm talking about the face of the profession of a teacher. It's ruined. Tang Qing was silent. He was thinking about every word Fang Yan said. Yes, this was the difference between this man and others. He was calculative and conscientious. He was long-winded and cherished his words like gold. He was a hoodlum, but at the critical moment he was able to stand up bravely. You think you understand him and see through him. No, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I know he sees me as an opponent. Fang Yan smiled and shook his head. But he is not worthy to be my opponent. Chapter 142. Killing 1,000 enemies while sacrificing 800 or killing 800 enemies while sacrificing 1,000 were all cruel ways of fighting. Fang Yan had many ways to knock down Zhang Yu and make him lose his reputation. Of course Fang Yan could do it. However, he would not choose to do so. Just as he said, he hoped to pass on positive energy to his students. He wanted them to be true, kind, and brave. He wanted them to have rich knowledge and a humble attitude towards life. He hoped that they would be great and charming people. He was a language teacher and so was Zhang Yu. If two language teachers fought like aunties in a wet market for the same venue, where would the dignity of a teacher be? Where would the elegance and decency be? Jealousy made Zhang Yu crazy and irrational. He put on a posture as if he was willing to be cut into pieces to bring down the emperor, but Fang Yan could not let him succeed. He would not fight with him. He was not even willing to let him touch the corner of his clothes. That was what Fang Yan thought. Many times people called him A.B*T. However, sometimes he also hoped that people could call him a swordsman. Because of the retreat of Class 9, Class 1 immediately occupied the venue and quickly entered the plot. To be honest, the performance of the students of Class 1 was really good. They were originally the most outstanding students carefully selected. Coupled with their strong comprehension and learning abilities, they came prepared and perfectly restored the scene of the Hongmen banquet and the context and mood of each character. After the performance of the first group of students, Fang Yan immediately applauded and praised. Good performance, Fang Yan said with a smile. The students of Class 9 were originally hostile to Class 1, but under the influence and drive of Fang Yan, they calmed down and enjoyed the performance of Class 1. They also applauded and cheered along with Fang Yan. Zhang Yu stood beside Fang Yan. Seeing Fang Yan's performance, a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. He thought to himself, of course it's good. The students of Class 1 are the most outstanding. What's good about it? I can only give you a passing mark. Zhang Yu called the group of students in front of him and commented on them one by one, saying, Zhang Xuedong, your Xiang Yu doesn't have the domineering aura of Chu Bawang at all. Wang Kai, your Lu Bang is too frivolous. Think about it, his life is in the hands of others. Can he still smile so happily? Be honest. Moving people with their emotions. Otherwise, why didn't Xiang Yu kill him? Huang Feihu's portrayal of Fan Kuai was the most successful. He was brave and resourceful, but he couldn't read his lines properly. When I go back, I need to read the original script more and practice more. Fang Yan smiled helplessly. This is just a reenactment of the scene. The purpose is to let everyone have a deeper understanding of the historical event that happened during that period. Isn't it too harsh to ask your students to act according to the standards of actors? Of course, Zhang Yu was the language teacher of Class 1. He was educating his students, so Fang Yan was not allowed to interrupt. Otherwise, it might really cause a war where both sides would suffer great losses. Zhang Yu waved his hand and said to them, all right. Go and take a break. The next group of students, get ready. Students below, please pay attention. I hope that everyone can act better and better. Each group will perform better than the last. If you see someone else's performance but it's worse than theirs, then it's not a matter of intelligence. It's a matter of attitude. Teacher, what if Class 9 sees our performance and it's worse than ours? A student asked jokingly. Sun Xinping, aren't you talking nonsense? It's normal for Class 9 to act worse than us. That's right. Why should we compete with Class 9? If we want to compete, we should compete with Class 2 or the top classes of other schools. When did Class 9 become our opponent? We are number 1 and they are number 9. There are 7 numbers between us, okay? The students of Class 1 laughed, finding this question very interesting. The students of Class 9 were furious. Wasn't this a blatant provocation and insult? So what if you're from Class 1? Tang Qing jumped out from Class 1. He didn't want to have a bad relationship with Class 1 after he graduated. After all, there were many people in Class 1 who were his friends. However, some people went too far and he couldn't bear it anymore. I think it's too boring. I don't want to stay there. I think so too. Xianxia echoed. She still stood outside the crowd with her hands in her pockets, with headphones plugged in her ears, looking like she didn't care about anything. However, a sentence at a critical moment was quite weighty. Tangqing was overjoyed, looking at his goddess Xianxia with excitement. She replied to me. She's on my side. She's on my side. Class 1 was collectively silent. Tangqing and Xianxia's counterattack was too fierce. They were beaten until they were dizzy. It must be known that Xianxia entered Class 1 as the top student in the whole school. Until now, no one had been able to surpass her. Rose Finch deserved to be the most beautiful girl in the school. All the students had to respectfully call her senior sister Etienne when they met. Such a student couldn't be replaced by other girls after she left. And Tangqing was also a top student in Class 1. He belonged to the first echelon like Xianxia. Rose Finch, the school hunk, was Xianxia's hardcore admirer and strongest competitor. Everyone thought that the two of them were a match made in heaven and would definitely be happy in the future. They would enter university, start working, and then get married and have children. However, the two most outstanding people in Class 1 had job hopped and left. And they went to Class 9, which they completely looked down upon. Zhang Yu's expression was also extremely ugly. He hated Fang Yan. He hated Fang Yan for stealing his limelight. He hated Class 9 for taking away the honor of Class 1. He also hated Fang Yan for poaching away his two favorite students, Xianxia and Tangqing. Now that Xianxia and Tangqing stood out to support Class 9, his heart felt as if it was being pricked by needles. He waved his hand forcibly suppressing the anger in his stomach, and said to Sun Xinping, who asked the question, "I'm talking about Class 1. We are only competing with Class 1 students. What does it have to do with us whether others act well or not? You can't even recognize who your opponent is. What's wrong with your head?" Sun Xinping smiled awkwardly and said, "Teacher, I was just joking." These people were constantly making insinuations and sarcastic attacks, which made Fang Yan's heart very uncomfortable. Their words were all belittling Class 9. They didn't put the students of Class 9 in their eyes at all. This made Fang Yan particularly angry. Why did they feel so good about themselves? Did they think that their students were superior to others? If someone said that their children weren't good-looking, perhaps all parents would find it hard to accept, right? Fang Yan walked in front of Zhang Yu and asked, "Miss Zhang, do you practice Tai Chi?" "I don't." "Do you learn Kung Fu?" "I don't." "Do you exercise?" Zhang Yu impatiently looked at Fang Yan and said, "What do you want to say?" "I really want to beat you up in the name of sparring." Fang Yan said, "Unfortunately, your defense is too good. You didn't give me a chance at all." Zhang Yu's face turned purple. Anger occupied his brain, making him temporarily lose the ability to fight back. "It doesn't feel good to be looked down upon, right?" Fang Yan asked with a smile. "Before you say those words, why don't you think about the students of Class 9? They are just a group of children. They are at the most sensitive age. They also have pride and self-respect. They also love face. They are all our students. Do you think it's really good for you to do this?" "Did I say something wrong?" Zhang Yu said angrily. "When did Class 9's performance surpass Class 1's? Has there ever been such a thing? Why don't I have any impression of it? If you're not convinced, why don't we have a little competition in the mock test next month?" "Compete in what?" "I don't care about other things. We will compete in Chinese," Zhang Yu said. "If you want to compete in general subjects, I don't have an opinion. But I still advise you not to humiliate yourself." "Then I will listen to you." "Class 9 will compete in Chinese with Class 1, Fang Yan said. "I believe they can get a good result this time. Do the nobles, generals, and ministers have guts? Can they enter Class 1 also be born with it?" Fang Yan had a good understanding of his students and was confident in them. None of them were mentally handicapped. None of them were fools or idiots. The reason why they did not surpass the students of Class 1 when they entered the school was because they did not work hard in junior high or their learning methods were not right. Now, since he became the teacher of Class 9's Chinese and Class 9's homeroom teacher, the students' learning enthusiasm was fully mobilized. He did not dare to guarantee other subjects, but he was confident that they would achieve a breakthrough in Chinese. Because before this they had used practical actions to prove it to him. Really? It's good that you are confident. Zhang Yu sneered. The loser has to apologize to the winner on the school radio station and read an apology written by the winner. Do you dare to accept my bet? I dare, but I am not good at writing. I am afraid that I can't write an apology. Fang Yan said in distress. You don't have to write it. Just wait for the script to be read. Zhang Yu said with a face full of sarcasm. I knew Miss Zhang would not make things difficult for me. Fang Yan grinned. He patted Zhang Yu's shoulder hard and said as if he was doing it for his own good. The teacher often has to sit and grade homework, the work pressure is great and the sub-health is getting worse. Miss Zhang, let me teach you Tai Chi? Zhang Yu thought, do you think I am stupid? Do you want to use me as Tai Chi? Chapter 143. When Lu Chaoge came downstairs, the servants had already prepared breakfast in the dining room. Jiang Zhulu sat at the dining table and read the newspaper. When he saw Lu Chaoge come downstairs, he closed the newspaper and said, I was still thinking about who would be the first to come downstairs to have breakfast with me. I really don't have much of an appetite facing this table of food alone. Lu Chaoge pulled out the chair opposite Jiang Zhulu and sat down. She asked, Where's uncle and auntie? My dad has to entertain his old friends at home today. He doesn't have to go to work, so he might sleep a little longer. My mom went to play mahjong with Mrs. Li and Mrs. Wang last night. When she came back it was already early in the morning. I don't think she'll get up for a while. Jiang Zhulu picked up the chopsticks in front of him and said, No need to wait. Let's eat first. Lu Chaoge nodded, picked up the knife and fork and began to cut the fried eggs on the plate. Have you been busy with work recently? Jiang Zhulu asked while stuffing fresh broccoli into his mouth. It's been all right. Lu Chaoge said expressionlessly. Have you sorted out the relationship between the schools? If there are any difficulties I'll go find Jing Tianqing for a cup of coffee. I think he'll give me some face. Jiang Zhulu said with a smile. His smile was gentle and full of confidence. Perhaps it was an insurmountable gap for many people, but it was a simple problem that could be solved with a phone call and a cup of coffee for people like them. No need. Lu Chaoge directly refused. Jiang Zhulu smiled and said, Actually, I've thought about buying Rosefinch Secondary directly. At least I want to become the largest shareholder of Rosefinch. I want you to be the principal so that you can fully display your abilities. Being held back by a group of useless old antiques all day, and doing everything is a waste of your precious time. Lu Chaoge raised her head and looked at Jiang Zhulu in surprise. She said, You didn't think like this before. As I understand you. Jiang Zhulu said. He added a packet of milk and half a packet of sugar into the coffee cup, and gently stirred it with a spoon. I know that if I make such a request you'll definitely refuse. Then why do you think I will agree now? Lu Chaoge asked. Because you think I can't hold on any longer? I'm the one who wants you to agree, Jiang Zhulu said with a smile. This will save you some time, won't it? Only by becoming the actual controller of that school can you plan and design it according to your vision. Otherwise, how much longer would you have to spend in that quagmire? 1 year? 2 years? Perhaps 3 to 5 years later? I'm not in a hurry, Lu Chaoge said. As long as she was given a little more time, she believed that she could completely establish herself in Rosefinch. Now more and more people were trying to get close to him. She just lacked some experience and convincing results. But someone is anxious. Jiang Zhulu smiled helplessly. You only come back every 2 days, so you can't understand my pain. My mom calls me every day to urge me to go home. Once I get home, she asks me when I'm getting married. I don't want to give you any pressure. I don't want to push you too hard. But you know, a woman in menopause can't be measured with common sense. So shouldn't we put this matter on the agenda? And what agenda? Lu Chaoge's tone became cold. She looked like she was 1,000 miles away. The wedding agenda, Jiang Zhulu said with a smile. Of course, the baby's agenda. Or there are many other things on the agenda. I haven't considered it, Lu Chaoge said. If you and auntie are in a hurry, you might as well see if other women are willing. Of course, I know many women are willing to marry into the Jiang family. You're not willing? Jiang Zhulu stared at Lu Chaoge and asked. I haven't considered it, Lu Chaoge said. She picked up a piece of egg with a fork and put it into her mouth, chewing it tastelessly. How vexing. How could he encounter such an oppressive forced marriage while eating breakfast? What did the Jiang family want? Why? No reason. I saw you for the first time when I was 3. You moved to my house when I was 6. We spent 20 years together. How did my parents treat you? How did I treat you? So, you want me to repay you with marriage? Lu Chaoge retorted. Repay? The muscles on Jiang Zhuoyou's face twitched. You said this is repayment? Could it be that I, Jiang Zhulu, can't find a woman? Do I need you to repay me with marriage? I do like you. I fell in love with you many years ago. I hope that you can be with me. I hope to marry you as my wife. I hope that I have the qualifications to be the man who can give you happiness. Is this considered as repayment? I don't like you, Lu Chaoge said. As a Fang Yan? Fang Yan. Lu Chaoge frowned and shook her head. It has nothing to do with him. Pa. Jiang Zhulu slapped the dining table and roared like a wounded beast. You Zhaoge, you don't even dare to admit what you've done? What are you afraid of? Of my revenge? Of that pretty boy who relies on women? I don't know what you're talking about. Fang Yan and I are just normal colleagues. Lu Zhaoge was nonchalant as he nibbled on the egg that he had cut into strips. Just ordinary colleagues? Do you think I'm an idiot? Jiang Zhulu sneered. Lu Chaoge, you're afraid that I'll take revenge on him, right? You're really considerate to him. You really don't trust my character. I'm not afraid of your revenge, Lu Chaoge said. You can't beat him. What's with the ruckus so early in the morning? Qiang Longtan, who was wearing a gray pajamas, scolded as he walked downstairs. Zhulu apologized to Chaoge. Apologize? Jiang Zhulu felt like he was about to explode. What did I do wrong? I just said a few words of truth. Someone took photos of her with that wild man, and you still have the nerve to lie and say there's nothing between them? What does it have to do with you if Chaoge makes friends? Qiang Longtan said sternly. As long as Chaoge isn't married and hasn't become someone's wife, she has the right to make friends freely. Apologize. Clang. Jiang Zhulu threw the fork in his hand and turned to walk outside. Bastard. Qiang Longtan pointed at Jiang Zhuoyou's back and cursed. After Jiang Zhuoyou's car drove away, Qiang Longtan sat down next to Lu Chaoge and comforted her. Chaoge, don't take it to heart. Zhulu doesn't have any bad intentions. As his parents, we all know how he feels about you. It's been so many years, but Zhulu hasn't had a proper girlfriend. As for why, we all know even if he doesn't say it. People have made him into one of the 4 beauties of Huaqing. What is there to show? It's just 4 young people from good families hanging out together to pass the time. He's still young and hasn't experienced much. It's understandable that he lost control of his emotions when he felt that things were getting out of his control or that the things he cared about were leaving him. No matter what, we're all family. Uncle, I understand. I'm not angry, Lu Chaoge said calmly. Qiang Longtan studied Lu Chaoge's expression carefully. After making sure that she really wasn't angry, he smiled and said, That's good. Your parents entrusted you to me and I'm afraid that you've suffered in this family. If there's anything, just tell me. Don't keep it to yourself. I don't need a son, but Chaoge will always be my favorite daughter. Thank you. Lu Chaoge's expression changed and her voice trembled as she said, Thank you, uncle. Qiang Longtan patted Lu Chaoge's shoulder and said, I'll go wash my face first. Eat more, don't try to lose weight like other girls. You've lost weight lately. I will, Lu Chaoge said. Qiang Longtan smiled and turned to go upstairs. When Qiang Longtan returned to his room, his wife, Ren Jin, was already smoking by the window in a black gauze nightgown. Qiang Longtan raised an eyebrow and said, Don't smoke so much. What? You can't stand me smoking a cigarette at home? I've never seen you get annoyed when that woman acts like a tyrant at home. Ren Jin's expression was displeased and her words were sharp and painful. How is Chaoge acting like a tyrant now? Qiang Longtan said with a dark expression. She's a poor child. She's been very sensible since she was young and we've never had to worry about her. Don't you feel guilty that she's acting like a tyrant at home? Don't I feel guilty? Ren Jin sneered. Zhu Lu said a few words about her and you went to get someone to apologize. Zhu Lu is a proud man and you're driving him out on purpose, aren't you? Don't you feel guilty for treating us like this? A man should always give in to a woman. Am I supposed to make Chaoge apologize to Zhu Lu when they're fighting? I can't bring myself to do that, said Qiang Longtan. Also, how many times have I told you? Don't get involved in their business. Rin Jin turned around abruptly and stared at Qiang Longtan with a mocking look in her eyes. Qiang Longtan, do you know what my father said about you the first time he met you? A yellow ox and a dog. You look like a hard-working old ox, but deep down you're a dog who wants to bite everyone he sees. You don't want me to get involved with them because you don't want them to be together, do you? Putting out the cigarette on the windowsill, Rin Jin said coldly, you don't want Lu Chaoga to be your daughter-in-law. You want her to be your son's stepmother, don't you? Smack. Qiang Longtan slapped Rin Jin across the face. Chapter 144. When Lu Chaoga was busy dealing with the work at hand, Xing Jing knocked on the door and came in. He looked at Lu Chaoga with a smile and said, Principal, I'm here to refill your cup of tea. Lu Chaoga glanced at Xing Jing and then looked at the documents on the desk again. Xing Jing took Lu Chaoga's cup to the water dispenser to refill the water, but he stood opposite Lu Chaoga's desk and did not leave immediately. Lu Chaoga looked up at him and asked, Is there anything else? Principal, is there anything I need to deal with? Xing Jing asked with a smile. Xiaoming is very capable. I will let her deal with anything, Lu Chaoga said. How can that be? Xing Jing waved his hand and said. Although I am the deputy director of the office, I am actually the principal's secretary. If there is anything, of course the principal will let me deal with it. The principal can't favor one and discriminate against the other. It is my honor to be able to serve the principal. Lu Chaoga looked up at Xing Jing for a few seconds. She closed the folder on the desk and said, Director Xing, sit down. Principal, just call me Little Xing. Xing Jing rubbed his hands and said, Director Xing, you are a smart person. I will not beat around the bush with you. Lu Chaoga said frankly and directly, I know that it is not easy for you and you also know that I am not free. So we don't have to torture each other. To be honest, I don't believe you. You can't be 100% loyal to me. Isn't it good for us to keep a certain distance? Principal Lu. Xing Jing's face was red. His throat moved, but he did not know what to say. Of course, Xing Jing knew the role he played around Lu Chaoga, but he was really at a loss when Lu Chaoga exposed him so blatantly. Don't hit people in the face. Being told by the boss that it was impossible to be 100% loyal to her, any subordinate would feel a sense of fear. Lu Chaoga tapped the document in front of her with her finger and said, Director Xing, I still have something to do. Xing Jing hurriedly got up as if his buttocks were on fire. Principal, you're busy. Xing Jing Luo ran away in a panic. Lu Chaoga sat for a while with a gloomy face. She got up and walked to the door of the office. She told the secretary Xiaoming, Ask teacher Fang Yan to come here. I have something to talk to him about. Yes. Xiaoming replied. No one would have thought that Fang Yan was sitting opposite Jing Tianqing at this time. One was an ordinary teacher, and the other was a board member of Rosefinch Secondary School. And Rosefinch Secondary was just a very inconspicuous business under Jing Tianqing Group. The difference in status between Fang Yan and Jing Tianqing was more than 108,000 miles. However, Fang Yan just had to sit in Jing Tianqing's office and become a VIP that he had to see. After the beautiful female secretary turned around and left, Fang Yan picked up the teacup and took a sip. He said with a smile, Director Xing really knows how to enjoy himself. This top-notch Longjing tea can't be drunk anywhere. But the quality of the tea in Principal Lu Chaoga's office is still a bit worse. Could it be that Principal Lu is more extravagant than Director Xing? Jing Tianqing's face was gloomy as he said, Principal Lu has an extraordinary background. It's not strange for her to have a few boxes of good tea. No, it's Principal Lu who treats people sincerely, Fang Yan said. Whether it's the school's senior leaders or a powerless teacher like me, she will take out her best tea to entertain the guests. I think Director Xing definitely won't drink this kind of tea, right? Jing Tianqing's dark face became even darker. Everyone knew that the boss's office was usually equipped with a variety of tea. If the boss wanted to drink tea, the secretary would naturally choose the most favorite tea according to the boss's taste. If it was an important guest, the secretary would choose the top tea according to the guest's taste. There was also a kind of tea called popular tea. It was for guests like Fang Yan who had no identity or status but the boss had to see, so he would use the same popular tea to entertain them. Since it was popular tea, the quality naturally wouldn't be good. What are you trying to say? Jing Tianqing said while suppressing the anger in his heart. If possible, he really wanted to ask the bodyguards to throw the guy in front of him out. Of course, he really didn't want to meet such a small character before. However, the information he sent in made him pay more attention to this guy. A small teacher actually had the guts to interfere with the school board's affairs? I'm saying that I hope Director Jing can be honest with me, Fang Yan said with a smile. Don't be like the tea leaves that are used to make tea, throwing out some random things to be perfunctory. If that's the case, it will hurt my sincere feelings from afar. Can we start now? Jing Tianqing said impatiently. He raised his wrist to look at his watch and said, You only have 5 minutes. Then let's start, Fang Yan said. Do you know Zhu Xian, Director Jing? I don't know him. Zheng Qingtian directly rejected the information of this person's existence in his mind. Of course, Director Jing may not be familiar with the name if I say it directly. After all, Director Jing usually comes into contact with some big shots. Zhu Jian used to be a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary and also Jing Guodong's language teacher. He was chased out of school because he had an ambiguous relationship with a female student and happened to be photographed by Jing Guodong. Does Director Jing have any impression of him? A little, Jing Tianqing said. Such a person doesn't deserve to be a teacher. The punishment he received is what he deserved. I used to wonder if we were being too lenient toward this kind of social trash. What if Zhu Jian was wronged? Fang Yan asked with a smile. Then you go find the person who wronged him and send him to the police station. A smile appeared on Jing Tianqing's face, but his eyes were cold when he looked at Fang Yan. Bad people should be punished. Isn't society moving forward smoothly and healthily by such moral principles and legal provisions? I think so too. Fang Yan nodded. Director Jing and I have the same idea. Fang Yan put down the teacup in his hand and said with a smile, Director Jing, then I won't bother you anymore. Since you have made up your mind, you have to actively implement it. After Fang Yan finished speaking, he turned and walked toward the office door. Insignificant skill. Jing Tianqing sneered. He knew that Fang Yan would not leave. If Fang Yan really wanted to leave, he would not have gone through so much trouble to see him. If he really wanted to call the police, why did he come to negotiate with him? Since he wanted to negotiate, it proved that he had ulterior motives. As long as there was something he wanted before he got it, he would definitely come back. Hey, why hasn't he come back yet? Jing Tianqing heard the sound of Fang Weiyan's footsteps getting farther and farther away. He heard Fang Yan open the office door, heard the office door close, and even heard Fang Yan praise his secretary outside. His secretary's eyes were as clear as a lake in spring. Until now, Fang Yan had not returned. Jing Tianqing could not sit still. He opened the office door, looked at the secretary and asked, Fang Yan, where is the young man just now? Boss, didn't you guys finish talking? The secretary asked doubtfully. Did he really leave? Yes, he left. Jing Tianqing's heart suddenly sank. This young man did not play by the rules, making him feel like he was out of control. Did he really find something? Did he really want to send the information to the police station? His reason told him not to act rashly. This was a trap. He could not take the initiative to enter the trap, and he could not be at a disadvantage. However, what if the opponent he encountered was a rash idiot? Jing Tianqing hesitated for a moment, then said to the secretary, Do you have his registered phone number? Call him and say he left something behind. Tell him to come back and get it. Yes, boss. The secretary was puzzled, but she still followed the boss's order. 5 minutes later, Fang Yan sat in Jing Tianqing's office again. This time the secretary brought a cup of tea. The quality of the tea was obviously improved by several grades. Fang Yan took a sip of the tea and praised, Good tea. I don't have any other hobbies, but I like this good tea. Elegant person. Jing Tianqing said. Oh, good beauty. The sage said that food and sex are natural. Good US dollars. Jing Tianqing sorted out his mood and said, I expressed my sincerity. Now can we talk seriously? Fang Yan said with a smile. Talk about what? Jing Tianqing felt a surge of anger in his heart. This person was not serious at all. Didn't Director Jing ask me to come back and say that I left something behind? I came back to get it. Fang Yan said. A mobile phone. Jing Tianqing said. It was left by another guest. I mistook it. Then there's nothing for me to do? Fang Yan said. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. Director Jing, see you at school. Fang Yan. Xing Tianqing shouted angrily. Be serious. Fang Yan was stunned, but he was happy in his heart. Very good. Xing Tianqing was angry. He was angry because he had a guilty conscience. Because he had a guilty conscience, he asked the secretary to call him back. Because he had a guilty conscience, he could tolerate his cynicism. Moreover, he was really worried that he had some important information in his hands. In that case, not only would his son's situation be worrisome, but he himself might not be able to get away with it, right? Xing Tianqing was angry, and this was the sincerity that Fang Yan wanted to see. Fang Yan sat down and said, I want to reverse the verdict for Zhou Xian and seek justice for him. Why? First, I want to wash away the shame on him and return his innocence. Second, I want Rosefinch to hire him back to teach and continue to be a Chinese teacher. Third, compensate him for his financial and mental losses. Fourth, all bad people should be punished. This is what Director Jing said just now. Chapter 145. Xing Tianqing sat there and listened attentively, looking at Fang Yan with gentle and kind eyes. She didn't think that Fang Yan's behavior was impolite, but encouraged him to continue. Director Jing, we're not ungrateful people. We also know that if people like us accidentally get into a conflict with you, or even if it's just because we feel that we've been treated unfairly and want to seek justice, it'll take a lot of courage. Fang Yan patted his chest and said, we have worked hard for a long time and have done a very meticulous job. So, please don't easily refuse and hurt us. Because it will hurt our last bit of self-esteem and make us hysterical. Things might get worse or anything might happen. Xing Tianqing looked at Fang Yan and asked, do you have anything else to say? No, Fang Yan said. You have mentioned the conditions and threats. Xing Tianqing nodded and said, you've already done very well. To be honest, you're not the best negotiator I've ever seen, but you're the most talented negotiator novice. In the past, I didn't realize that in Rosefinch Secondary, in my territory, there was actually such a talent hidden. This is really my mistake and loss. Xing Tianqing looked at Fang Yan with a face full of sincerity and said in an equal and friendly tone, Fang Yan, how about being my assistant? You will come to a big platform that you have never imagined before. You will receive the respect of countless people and opportunities for development that no one can estimate. Rosefinch's platform is too small, it is not suitable for you. Just an invitation? Fang Yan asked. No threat? No threat, Xing Tianqing said without hesitation. I'm not a threat here. I'm going to tell you what you're getting. First, you'll get what looks like a handsome annual salary. If your performance amazes me, I don't mind giving you some dividends. You know, this is a benefit that only the senior executives and those who have followed me for many years can enjoy. Of course, if you become my assistant, you will also be considered as half a member of the company's senior management. Second, you will own a 300 square meter house and a car worth more than 300,000 yuan. This way, isn't it a little stronger than living in the Vermilion Bird Middle School's teacher's dormitory? Do you have a room at Rosefinch Secondary? Not at the moment, Fang Yan said. He lived in the house that Lu Chaoga had lent him. Lu Chaoga could lend the house to him and she had the right to take it back at any time. Because a certain director in the logistics department was prejudiced against him, he didn't even have a separate room. What a pity. Talented young people deserve more opportunities to live a better life. Xing Tianqing said. I just overheard you complimenting my front desk lady's clear eyes, just like a lake in spring. This description is too appropriate. Qin Ting was really beautiful, wasn't she? Sexy girl and a handsome guy. This was really a romantic beginning. If you can become my assistant, what can't happen between you two? It had to be said that Xing Tianqing was a very smart negotiator. He didn't respond to Fang Yan's words. He even downplayed the matter that Fang Yan mentioned and the conditions that he proposed. He didn't fight on a battlefield that was unfavorable to him. He opened up another battlefield that could better display his advantages and strengths. Of course, this battlefield was definitely the favorite of his negotiators. High-paying position, good salary, and immeasurable development opportunities. Big house, good car, and of course there would be no lack of beautiful women. What you want, he will give. What you lack, he will provide. He satisfied all the fantasies of a loser. He could let you cut off your past life and reach the sky in one step. Yes, he could do it. You will have so much, and you will have so much that you can't even imagine before. In this case, how many people could persist persist in standing on the opposite side of Jing Tianqing for a person who was not related to them and a matter that had nothing to do with them? Who would be the enemy of a luxurious house, a beautiful car and a tempting high-paying position? If Fang Yan was really a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary, if Fang Yan was just a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary, if he was like other teachers, they were comfortable and poor. They didn't have to worry about food and clothing, but they couldn't live extravagantly. Their work was easy and stressful. More importantly, they felt that their life was extremely mediocre and boring. If Fang Yan was such a person, could he refuse the conditions that Jing Tianqing proposed? The answer was no. He wouldn't refuse. However, Fang Yan was Fang Yan. He was not only a language teacher. The reason he could refuse and say no to Jing Tianqing was not because he rejected these things, but because he had these things to begin with. He was not more noble than anyone else. He just had a stronger backing and richer capital than others. This was really a sad story. To be honest, I'm very tempted, Fang Yan said. I mean, if it was anyone else who came to negotiate with you, they might be bribed by you and let you have your way. Even if the victim, teacher Zhou Xian, came himself, I'm afraid he would also hesitate. Of course, this is the result after I put myself in the shoes of the victim. I don't think I'm more moral than teacher Zhou Xian. What I did was within the scope of my ability. And what he did was within the scope of his morality. So, if both of us were to run for the honor of Rosefinch Secondary's moral model, I would not hesitate to cast my vote into the ballot box in front of him. Jing Tianqing frowned slightly. Things had become a bit tricky. He had made such a promise. If Fang Yan agreed to accept it as a smart person, he wouldn't mention the so-called victim or the harsh words like Zhu Jian anymore. Let bygones be bygones. Everyone could start working together to a better future. Wouldn't that be great? He believed in Fang Yan's IQ and believed that he could make such a choice. But Fang Yan didn't. He was still mentioning the victim, still mentioning Zhu Jian. So was he going to refuse? Why would he refuse? How could he refuse? But I can only refuse, Fang Yan said. Some people serve for power, some become a lackey for money, some just do it for a high-income job, to let their family live a better life. It's not easy for anyone to live. Why do you work? For fairness, Fang Yan said. For morality, for my conscience, which is decent most of the time. Jing Tianqing stared at Fang Yan with burning eyes for a while and then laughed out loud. He laughed until he was gasping for breath. His fat cheeks were full of meat. He pointed at Fang Yan with his thick finger and said, Fang Yan, do you know? Every day there are countless people who want to visit my office. I receive at least 5,000 guests every year. The number of people sitting in your current position is countless. But do you know that they only come to see me for one purpose? Cooperation to make money? Or cooperation to make money? No one has ever talked to me about conscience and no one has ever talked to me about morality. Because not everyone can be so thick-skinned as to say such things in a dignified manner. Ah, Fang Yan, you're really fresh. Fang Yan didn't laugh. Jing Tianqing was telling the truth. In the era of profit, who would talk about conscience? Who had the nerve to talk about morality? They don't say it because they are too embarrassed to say it. Fang Yan said with a serious face. I say it because they don't say it. These words, these things, someone has to stand up and say it. Someone has to be brave to do it. Whether it's conscience or morality, it's a compliment. It's not shameful to say it and do it. Jing Tianqing looked at Fang Yan with a dignified face and said, So, your conscience and morality make you refuse my good intentions. But our negotiation must continue. Fang Yan said. Let's have a good talk about conscience and morality. Then you have to strictly abide by the negotiation process. Jing Tianqing said. In a business transaction, the buyer inspects the goods first, then the seller makes an offer. The buyer bargains and finally the transaction is concluded. Both sides are satisfied. How can the seller make an offer at the beginning? Fang Yan, if you want to get a good price, I'm afraid it's not enough to just have a good eloquence and a kind heart. I'm afraid you have to come up with something more convincing. Director Jing, you already have a guilty conscience, don't you? If you didn't have a guilty conscience, why would you ask your secretary to call me to come back? If you didn't have a guilty conscience, why would you be willing to give such a tempting offer to a little teacher like me? If you don't have a guilty conscience, don't be afraid of ghosts knocking on the door. Ba, I'm not a ghost. You know what I said is the truth, but you still don't want to admit it. You think you've done a good job and cleaned up the mess. You believe in money, wisdom, capable people and extensive connections, but you don't believe in God. I've seen too many people like you. Fang Yan looked at Jing Tianqing, his cheeks blushing. He looked very embarrassed and said, I like to slap this kind of people in the face. Fang Yan took out a hard drive from his pocket and said, if you have a computer you might as well open it. Your son won't let you down. Jing Tianqing didn't hesitate. He took the hard drive and walked quickly to his desk computer. He plugged the hard drive into the computer and quickly operated it with his right hand. Soon, his face was ashen and his body slumped into the leather swivel chair. Chapter 146. Where did this come from? Jing Tianqing asked in a hoarse voice as if someone was choking his neck when he spoke. What's the point of asking this? Fang Yan asked with a smile. He picked up the tea in front of him and sipped it leisurely. The outcome had been determined and he didn't want to waste this delicious tea. Drinking tea after a victory had a different taste. Jing Tianqing was irritated but he was more shocked. He pushed the chair away and stood up. His face became firm and hateful as he said, there were only 5 of them there at the time. The girl can be ruled out but Zhou Xian is the victim. If he had this video in his hands, I'm afraid he would have taken it out to save himself. Jing Tianqing's voice became murderous as he said, so, is it Li Mingqiang's son or Qin Tao's son? The answer to this question is really obvious. Why must it be them? Li Yang and Qin Tao are Jing Guodong's followers. How could they betray him? Why can't it be the 6th person? Fang Yan asked with a smile. Someone happened to pass by the woods and happened to see the shameful scene. He didn't have the courage to stop it but he filmed this video that caught you off guard. This is also very possible. Jing Tianqing sneered and said, you worked so hard to speak for those 2 children. Haven't you already proved a lot of things? Why? Are you afraid that I will retaliate against them? Of course, Director Jing is not that kind of person, Fang Yan said with a smile. Besides, compared to retaliating against them, you have more important things to deal with, right? Name your price, Jing Tianqing said. Your price and Zhou Jian's price. What Zhou Jian needs he will talk to you. But I don't want money, not a penny. Fang Yan said in a very serious tone, I want the bad guys to be punished. This is my only request. I can't agree to this, Jing Tianqing said. Then I will submit this video to the school and the police station, Fang Yan said. Of course, for safety reasons, I will also post it on the internet. Aren't you afraid of my retaliation? Yes, Fang Yan said. But aren't you afraid of my revenge? Do as I said just now. First, I wanted to wash away the shame on Zhou Jian. He was a good person and he shouldn't have to carry such a heavy burden all his life. Secondly, I want Rosefinch to hire him back as a teacher. Send him an invitation. Whether he refuses or not is his prerogative. Thirdly, compensate him for his physical and financial losses. You owe him and Rosefinch owes him. Fourth, the real bad guys should be punished. Otherwise, everything I do will be meaningless. Can we do this? Jing Tianqing sat across from Fang Yan and said, I promise you the first 3 conditions. No, I promise you double. I will think of a way to wash away the shame on Zhou Jian and give him a chance to turn over a new leaf. Second, I will hire Zhou Jian to teach at Rosefinch and start from the position of Deputy Director of Teaching. Thirdly, if he gives me a reasonable amount of money, I'll give him double the compensation. But I'll let Jing Guodong go this time. He's still a child. I can let him leave. Leave Rosefinch, leave Wuxia. Let him go far away. If I promise you, does it count as me colluding with you? Fang Yan asked rhetorically. Fang Yan put down the teacup and said, Director Jing, you are a man of great wisdom. I believe that you have no choice but to do such a thing. So I'll give you 3 days. I believe that you can make a wise choice. If Zheng Guodong accidentally runs away within these 3 days, then I'll make this video public regardless of the consequences. Director Jing has a big business, so be careful. Fang Yan took out his mobile phone from his pocket and looked at the time. He said embarrassedly, Oh, we've been meeting for more than 5 minutes. It's really a sin to delay the school board meeting. Jing Tianqing felt powerless. This guy really held a grudge. A few major events happened at Rosefinch Secondary these days. The first major event was naturally the eldest of the school's 3 foppish playboys, Zheng Guodong, dropped out of school. He suddenly left the school without informing anyone. Jing Tiancheng's secretary only sent a withdrawal application to the school. Why did Jing Guodong drop out of school? Where did Jing Guodong go? This became the topic of many students' discussion. Of course, it was also a mystery that was difficult to pry into the truth. Fang Yan knew where Jing Guodong went. He entered the juvenile detention center and was about to start a new life that he had never experienced before. Jing Tiancheng finally made a wise choice. He had a big business, so he didn't dare to let this matter affect his own reputation, nor did he dare to let the company's reputation suffer any damage. Within the scope of Fang Yan's permission, he kept Jing Guodong's withdrawal and entry into the juvenile detention center within his control. It didn't cause any big waves, not even a small ripple. He had the ability to do it. Of course, the students were happy to see Jing Guodong drop out of school. Who asked him to be domineering and bully his classmates in school? He wasn't liked at all. The second major event was Zhou Xian's return. The language teacher who was expelled from the school because of a scandal with a student returned. The school obtained new evidence to prove that Zhou Xian and the girl only had a normal teacher-student relationship. In order to make up for Zhou Xian's long period of unfair treatment and grievances, the school not only recruited him back, but also arranged for him to take the important position of Vice Director of Education. Now he was Li Mingqiang's assistant. It could be said that Zhou Xian's return was more sensational than Jing Guodong's dropping out of school, and it caused more heated discussions among the teachers and students. Some smart people guessed that Jing Guodong's departure had something to do with Zhou Xian's return, but no one had evidence to prove that there was a definite connection between the two. The third major event was the official establishment of the Rosefinch Secondary Tea Ceremony Society. The first president of the Tea Ceremony Society was the school's legendary figure, Qin Yitian. Qin Yitian originally refused to take on this position. She didn't feel that she had the mood and obligation to spend her precious time and energy to explain and demonstrate the real tea ceremony to her juniors. However, after Fang Yan's repeated requests and even accepted a condition that only the two of them knew, Qin Yitian finally agreed. Sure enough, the power of an idol was infinite. If you didn't see it with your own eyes, you would never be able to understand how terrifying the girl's influence in the school was. With the support and help of Lu Chaoga, the school specially provided an activity venue for the Tea Ceremony Society and renovated the room into a classical-style tea house. Qin Yitian stood at the entrance of the tea house. When two boys hung the plaque inscribed by Lu Chaoga on the wall, countless students who heard the news rushed over to cheer and applaud. Then there was a long queue in front of the registration desk, and the first batch of 100 registration forms was sold out. Those who couldn't sign up protested loudly, but Qin Yitian turned a deaf ear to them. She directly closed the door of the tea house and pulled the first batch of club members into the tea house for a meeting. The popularity of the Tea Ceremony Society made Fang Yan, the honorary president of the Tea Ceremony Society, very happy. He knew that anything would be successful as long as he had the label of a goddess. Of course, the establishment of the Tea Ceremony Society was to promote the tea ceremony of Wuxia and cultivate the habit of drinking and loving tea in Wuxia. They recruited 100 people in the first batch and selected some students who came for the tea ceremony. Then they would select the best in batches and turn the Tea Ceremony Society into a real tea ceremony society, not just another fan club of Qin Yitian. Obviously, this process was very difficult. It was said that men who worked hard were the most attractive. In fact, in the eyes of men, women who worked hard were also very sexy. Fang Yan sat opposite Lu Chaoga's desk and watched her quickly read through her opinions on one document after another and sign her name. Her glasses were lowered to the bridge of her nose, and her long hair was loose and touched the paper. Her nose was round and smooth, and there wasn't even a common black head. Her eyes were big and bright, and her long eyelashes looked forward like a beautiful little fan. Every time her eyes fluttered, it was like a light touch on a man's heart. After dealing with the last document, Lu Chaoga closed the folder and asked her secretary Xiao Meng to come in and distribute the documents to each department. Then she explained to Fang Yan, the school's anniversary is the focus of the school during this time. Every department has to be mobilized to participate. Did you invite Zhu Jian back? The school invited him back, Fang Yan said with a smile. I'm not qualified to give the position of Deputy Director of Education to him. Lu Chaoga took off her glasses and her beautiful eyes were even sharper and dazzling. You know what I mean, Lu Chaoge said. The leaders of the school, including me, even if they suspected that there would be some disgraceful shadows in Zhu Jian's case, but because of Xing Tianqing's intervention, no one really thought about doing anything for him. A lot of things are in the past and no one will think about uncovering and investigating him again. Especially things that have nothing to do with their own interests. Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yan and said, You mentioned Zhu Jian in front of me more than once because there were some misunderstandings between us. I know that if there was no external intervention, Zhu Jian wouldn't have come back, and it would be even more impossible for him to wash away the shame and regain his innocence like this. Fang Yan, you did what I couldn't do. I admire you very much. Fang Yan's mouth was round and his face was full of disbelief. This strong woman who never compromised with anyone actually said that she admired him? I'll treat you to dinner tonight, Lu Chaoge said. If there's nothing else. I hope you won't refuse. Oh, Fang Yan was even more shocked. Is this a date? Chapter 147. Who is playing the east wind with the pipa? The years are peeling off the wall, remembering my childhood. Fang Yan was singing. Some people say that if you are successful in love, you will be frustrated on the battlefield. Frustrated on the battlefield, you will be proud in love. Nonsense. Fang Yan was now proving to them that he was not only proud on the battlefield, but also very proud in love. Look at the iceberg goddess of the school, the star idol worshipped by thousands of people, the mature and sexy headmistress, the proud and stubborn strong woman. Lu Chaoge took the initiative to invite him on a date, blowing the horn of attack and shouting the password of conquest. Just thinking about it made people feel sweet in their hearts. Men conquer women by conquering the world. If you fail on the battlefield, how can you conquer the world? If you can't conquer the world, how can you conquer women? So, some things are really unreasonable. Mr. Fang, what makes you smile so happily? Like a flower. Lu Chaoge's secretary, Xiaoming, stood in front of Fang Yan and looked at his happy face and asked aloud. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, I'm a child, I don't understand. Annoying. Xiaoming said angrily, Who said I'm a child? You're a child. I know even if you don't say it. What do you know? Fang Yan asked. Isn't it just the leader inviting you to dinner? Xiaoming said proudly. After that, Xiaoming quickly looked around. She exposed the leader's privacy in public. If the leader heard it, he would be very unhappy. Fang Yan looked at Xiaoming with wide eyes and said, You already know? You eavesdropped on our conversation? Xiaoming rolled her eyes and said, Please, I helped you book the restaurant where you ate. I already knew before you came to see the headmistress, okay? Fang Yan felt that Lu Chaoge was too inexperienced. How could this kind of thing be known? Booking a restaurant shouldn't be left to the secretary. Maybe she disdains to hide her feelings. She wants everyone to know who she truly belongs to, Fang Yan thought. Just like Qin Yitian. Thinking of this possibility, Fang Yan blushed and felt dizzy. His body felt light as if he had just drunk a big bowl of wine. Mr. Fang, what's wrong with you? Xiaoming saw that Fang Yan's expression was not right and asked anxiously. I'm fine. Fang Yan waved his hand. I'm fine. A pot of muddy wine is a happy reunion. How many things have happened in the past and present, all in laughter and conversation. Fang Yan strode away, his voice also becoming passionate and heroic. Xiaoming hummed along and found that the lyrics couldn't keep up with the tune of Breaking East Wind. Sky 1. Some people said that this was the most expensive restaurant in Flower City. One of them. Fang Yan stood in front of the glass door of Sky Number 1 and said embarrassedly, Isn't this too wasteful? What we eat is secondary. Our main goal is to find a place to talk and chat. Lu Chaoge glanced at Fang Yan and didn't say anything. How about I pay the bill for this meal? Fang Yan said. Usually this kind of thing is paid by the man. Lu Chaoge glanced at Fang Yan and said, Okay. Fang Yan's eyes widened. Why did she really agree? With her strong personality, shouldn't she have slapped herself in the face and said, Stop fighting, I said I'll pay the bill today, so I'll pay today? For a man, paying the bill is also a kind of honor. Fang Yan's expression was a little awkward and he was embarrassed to look at Lu Chaoge's eyes. But you didn't tell me in advance. If I don't have enough money on me, I'll need to borrow some from you. I have enough money. I'll pay the bill. Lu Chaoge's lips curled into a smile. I'm really sorry. Fang Yan said. I hope you won't laugh at me. My self-esteem is very fragile. There will be opportunities in the future. Lu Chaoga's voice was calm and gentle. He seemed to be hinting at something. Fang Yan thought to himself, what is she hinting at? She wants to tell me not to rush. If we get together in the future, I'll give you opportunities to pay the bill often. Is that so? Then should I reject her tonight? Who would dare to want such an unscrupulous woman? Sir, how many? A beautiful attendant in a stewardess uniform walked over quickly and greeted them with a smile. 2, Lu Chaoga said. My surname is Lu. Miss Lu has booked a magic cloud private room. Please follow me. The attendant pressed the elevator button behind her, and then the elevator, which could enjoy the surrounding scenery in all directions, took them all the way up to a height of tens of meters. The private room was mainly sky blue, and the magic clouds were everywhere as if they were really flying in the sky. Seeing the environment in the private room, Fang Yan was very glad. He thought to himself, fortunately I'm not paying the bill. The attendant brought the electronic menu. Each dish had a video specially shot for it. If one was interested in this dish, he could click on the video to learn more about it. Fang Yan felt that it was too high-tech. He said, Principal Lu, you order. You can call me Lu Chaoga, Lu Chaoga said without raising her head. Lu Chaoga. Fang Yan whispered the name and felt his heart beat faster. These women were really enchanting. Their casual words could make people feel numb and have strange associations. Lu Chaoga ordered a few dishes skillfully and said, Open a bottle of red wine I saved last time. Okay, the attendant replied. Miss Lu, please wait a moment. After the attendant left, Lu Chaoga took off her silver coat and hung it on the hanger in the room. She wore a white shirt and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window to look at the night view of Huacheng. The sky was dark and the clouds were rolling. A heavy rain was coming. Lu Chaoga's eyes were blurry and her expression was dull. No one knew what she was thinking. Fang Yan stood behind her and didn't know what to say. Someone told me that you can only enjoy the true night view of Huacheng from here, Lu Chaoga said. I tried many times and it's true. Yes, Fang Yan agreed. Although he didn't know if the neon lights of the skyscrapers outside counted as the true night view of Huacheng, he said, the view is pretty good. This is our first time eating together? Lu Chaoga asked. Yes. Everyone is usually very busy. It has nothing to do with being busy, Lu Chaoga interrupted Fang Yan and said, it's just that it's not convenient. It's not suitable. Yes, it's not convenient. It's not suitable. If Lu Chaoga, the school's vice principal, always ate with Fang Yan, the new teacher, rumors about them would probably spread throughout the school, right? People would probably scold them for being stupid if they said they weren't a couple. But do you have to say it so clearly and make people feel like I'm not worthy of you? People change and so does their state of mind, Lu Chaoga said. I used to think that I was good at reading people, but after knowing you for so long I've never really seen you clearly. Sometimes I think I've seen you clearly, but you'll soon prove to me that I'm wrong. Fang Yan smiled and said, why do you have to see people so clearly? Because I lack a sense of security, Lu Chaoga said. For people who I can't see clearly, I'll classify them as bad people. I'm worried that he'll tear off his disguise at any time and reveal his smelly fangs. This is very unfair to good people like us. Fang Yan shook his head and smiled bitterly. Yes, you're a good person, Lu Chaoga said. I don't know what you have on Jing Tiancheng, but I think when you went to negotiate with him with his businessman nature, he must have offered you very good conditions, right? Very good. I was almost bought over. But you didn't, Lu Chaoga said. Not only were you not bought, but you also sent his only son to the juvenile detention center. Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoga in surprise and said, you know about this. This was his negotiation with Jing Tiancheng, and it was also an agreement. He thought that no one would know where Jing Guodong went. This is the best ending, Lu Chaoga said. It's the same for him and it's the same for Zhou Xian. It's the best ending for everyone. Jing Tiancheng definitely won't think so. But you're not afraid at all. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yan with burning eyes and said, Fang Yan, sometimes I really wonder, is there anything you can't do? Don't put me on such a high pedestal, I'm also an ordinary person, Fang Yan said with a smile. Even if it's just a sense of justice, it's already very unusual in this world, Lu Chaoga said. I admire righteous people, so I want to treat you to a meal. Just because of justice? Fang Yan asked. He felt a little disappointed. What about the promised date? What about the candlelight dinner? You don't even chase after me, how can I refuse you? And wisdom, Lu Chaoga said. Splat. Bean-sized raindrops slapped on the window, making a sound like beans being fried. Outside, the wind was howling, lightning flashed, and thunder roared. This was a rare rainstorm that Fang Yan had seen since he came to Huaqing. I like rainy days, Lu Chaoga said as she looked at the rain outside. Women all like rainy days, Fang Yan said with a smile. It's easy to make people sentimental. I just think. There was a cruel smile in Lu Chaoga's eyes. This world is too dirty, it needs to be cleaned. Fang Yan was shocked. Lu Chaoga was a little strange today. She was very different from the cold and proud Lu Chaoga that he had met before, who didn't seem to care about anything. Knock knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Before Lu Chaoga and Fang Yan could respond, the door was pushed open from the outside. A group of people walked in with glasses of wine. The man in the lead smiled and said, Chaoga, I know you're eating here, so I came to have a drink with you. Chapter 148. Femme Fatale. Fang Yan didn't doubt the truth of this sentence at all. However, what made him feel so wronged and depressed was that Lu Chaoga wasn't his femme fatale at all. She was just his colleague and his boss. They didn't even have the chance to sit at the same table and have a meal together. Why was he always in trouble? Jiang Zhulu. Fang Yan's inexplicable rival in love, Jiang Zhulu, appeared at the door of the private room and walked toward Lu Chaoga with a glass of wine in his hand. With a charming smile on his face, he walked straight to Lu Chaoga and stood in front of her. He raised his glass to Lu Chaoga gracefully and said, Lu Chaoga, I wasn't in a good mood this morning and said some very rude things. I hope you won't take it to heart. Take this cup of wine as a token of my apology. Lu Chaoga stared at Jiang Zhulu with a sharp gaze and then her eyes gradually softened. In the end, she still picked up the glass in front of her and clinked glasses with Jiang Zhulu before draining the red wine in one gulp. Jiang Zhulu also drained the red wine in his glass and said with a smile, Let bygones be bygones. Living happily is the most important thing. Am I right? I've already forgotten, Lu Chaoga said. Forget the unhappy things and remember the things that are worth remembering, Jiang Zhulu said. You know why I'm anxious and you also know why I lost control of my anger. After so many years, you understand me far better than I understand you. Although I still don't know you well enough, but... Jiang Zhulu lightly patted his chest and said, You've always been here. In a very important position. Thank you. Don't say thank you. Who is it that said that? Once a woman is polite, a man won't have a chance. Jiang Zhulu turned around, looked at a tall man and asked, Lu Shu, did you say that? Ah, you're trying to divert the trouble. What does it have to do with me when you two are flirting? I'm not going to get involved in your family war, the man said jokingly. The man called Lu Shu had a straight back. His facial features were sharp and his eyes were deep. He was well dressed and had an extraordinary temperament. He was wearing a light pink collared shirt and a custom-made black suit with a slightly longer tail. He didn't wear any jade or precious wood on his body. There was only an old plum blossom watch that looked out of place on his wrist. It was as if there was a scar on his snow-white arm. This plum flower watch looked very old. It should have been thrown into the trash can or an antique box. However, the man treated it like a treasure and wore it on his wrist. This proved that this watch either had a great background or this person wanted to use it to show off. I always meet such strange people, Fang Yan thought to himself. I don't mind if you say that, but I won't save you if you piss off Chaoga, Jiang Zhulu said with a smile. Lu Shu walked to Lu Chaoga with a glass of wine in his hand and said with a smile, Chaoga, I was just joking with you. You're not mad, are you? No, Lu Chaoga said. I knew it. Since when did my cousin Chaoga become such a narrow-minded woman? Most men wouldn't be able to do what Chaoga did. Chaoga, we haven't had a drink together in a long time, right? Come, let's have a drink. Plang. Their glasses clinked and they drained the red wine in their glasses at the same time. After that, Lu Shu scratched his shoulder-length hair out of habit and said with a smile, Drinking with a pretty girl is the best. I have a bunch of sweaty and smelly men over there. It's really boring to drink with them. Why don't we share a table? Lu Chaoga turned him down and said, Maybe next time. I have a guest. A guest? Thank God, Lu Shu finally looked at Fang Yan's face. I've never seen him before. I've never seen him before, have I? Fang Yan. He's a teacher at school, said Lu Chaoge. My colleague. Teacher? Colleague? Lu Shu guffawed as if he had just heard a funny joke. Chaoge, don't tell me you're really going to put down roots in the education industry? You're already bribing your subordinates. What's the point of staying at that crappy school? If you're willing to work for me, I'll make you a vice president. If you want to start your own business, I'll invest 30 million in you up front and 30 million more every 3 months. What do you think? If it weren't for the fact that he had to prove to them that he was also a man who had seen a lot of money, Fang Huohua's face would have turned into an "oh" again. Regardless of the project or the field, an initial investment of 30 million and an additional 30 million every 3 months. That was to say, Lu Chaoge would get 10 million in venture capital every month. Just now, Fang Yan was still feeling proud of himself for resisting Jing Tianqing's temptation. He felt that he was really a great man who could not be subdued by force, could not be lustful, and regarded money as dirt and beautiful women as old women. Now, compared to the temptation that Lu Chaoge had experienced, he was simply too ashamed to show his face. Thank you. Lu Chaoge refused as expected. I really like my current job. I knew it. This is the Lu Chaoge I know. Even if I don't like you, I can't not respect you. Lu Shu said with a smile. He glanced at Fang Yan, who was sitting still in the chair, and said, You don't mind if we share a table, do you? I don't mind. Fang Yan said with a smile. As long as Principal Lu agrees. You're all friends anyway. Lu Shu laughed proudly and pointed at Fang Yan. You see, even if a woman wants to find a shield, she should find a man with a bit of backbone. This kind of person with osteochondrosis probably can't take on an important role, right? Willow tree. Lu Chaoge scolded. He's my friend. I know. Lu Shu nodded. Of course he's your friend. He's also a very important friend of yours. Otherwise, how could you bring him to Sky One? How could you open the good wine you've stored here for him? Lu Shu thought for a moment and said, As far as I know, you haven't brought another man here before, have you? What's his name again? He's really special. I have to get close to him. This is my private matter. It has nothing to do with you. As a brother, I should care about my sister's living condition. What's wrong with that? Lu Shu asked with a smile. Chaoge, sometimes IQ isn't important, but choice is. You're a smart person and should understand what I mean. Thank you for your kindness. I'm responsible for my own life. But please don't insult my friend. Lu Chaoge said. Lu Shu pointed a finger at Fang Yan and said with a laugh, You think I'm insulting him? You think I'm insulting him? Lu Shu turned to look at his friends behind him and said, Do you think I'm insulting him? Who is he? Does he deserve to be insulted by Mr. Lu? Exactly. What the hell? He's just a school teacher. Isn't he afraid of dirtying Mr. Lu's mouth? Mr. Lu, can't you scold me a little if you have the time? If you scold me, I'll brag to the other brothers that I was scolded by Mr. Lu. I'll have a lot of face and my status will rise. The Prime Minister's doorstep was a third-rank official. Those who could hang out with Jiang Zhulu and Lu Shu were naturally people with some background. They were either billionaires or their parents were high-ranking officials. Naturally, they wouldn't care about a little teacher like Fang Yan. Their words were sinister and malicious, mainly to make Lu Shu happy. Lu Chaoge's expression became even colder and her eyes shone with a sinister light. She wanted to be angry, she wanted to scream, but she couldn't say anything and she couldn't do anything. She was asking for humiliation. Yes, if she did that, she would only be asking for humiliation. Lu Shu, nicknamed the Willow in the River Pond, was one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing. His ranking was even higher than Jiang Zhuoyou's. To be able to be ranked as one of Huaqing's 4 prodigies, which one of them didn't have a shocking background and strength? If everyone maintained a layer of skin on their faces, then she would still be Lu Chaoge, the love interest of Jiang Zhulu, the adopted daughter of Qiang Longtan and a member of the Jiang family. They had to at least maintain a respectful appearance towards her. However, if everyone shed all pretense of cordiality, would Jiang Zhulu stand on her side? Would Qiang Longtan speak up for her? That layer of tiger skin on her body would probably be torn apart with a single stab. What could she do to them? Other than being exposed as a worthless mask, she couldn't change anything. I think you said something wrong. Fang Yan wiped his mouth with a napkin and stood up. Are you talking to me? Lu Shu looked at Fang Yan with interest and asked with a smile. He had been hanging around watching for so many years and no one had ever dared to refute him. You're called, what? Fang Yan wasn't someone who dared to take a loss. Others couldn't remember his name and he also couldn't remember other people's names. More importantly, no one had ever explained to him where these guys came from. Please, you're not Lu Dehua or Zhang Shuyo. Everyone in the world should know you, right? Lu Shu. Lu as in willow, tree as in willow. Lu Shu said with a smile. This name is easy to remember, right? Everyone calls me Hatong Lu. My name is Fang Yan. It's the flame of two fires, Fang Yan said. My name is even easier to remember. Everyone calls me Fang Huohua. Although I don't really like this nickname. Then we really know each other. You can say that. Fang Yan nodded. Now you can tell me, what did I say wrong? I have bones. Fang Yan stretched out his arm and said, if you don't believe me, feel it. Chapter 149. Can a person eat, walk, or fight without a bone? Fang Yan hated being wrong the most. So he wanted to use his actions to prove to them that he had a bone. Touch it, touch it. Fang Yan extended his arm in front of the willow tree and said, what you see may be fake, but what you feel is real. Touch the bones of my fingers, touch the bones of my elbows, touch the bones of my vertebrae. Of course, the willow tree wouldn't touch it with his hands. He looked at Fang Yan like he was crazy and said to Lu Chaoga, is this person sick? Too much. Fang Yan was angry. Just now you said I have no bones and now you say I'm sick. How can you be like this? How can you casually say someone is sick? You're not the genius Dr. Qin Luo. You can tell if someone has a heart problem just by looking at their forehead, or if they have a kidney deficiency just by looking at their face. Let me tell you, my body is fine. The willow tree's mouth opened and closed, but he didn't know what to say. He was a famous playboy in Flower City, a Casanova of the masses. Whether it was a young lady, a pure lowly, or a gorgeous young married woman, he could talk and laugh with them without end. Why did he suddenly feel a lack of words when he met this guy? He felt something was wrong. He called him a spineless person because he didn't have a sense of responsibility and couldn't stand up for Lu Chaoga to defend against their arrival and bear the possible risks. He said he was sick because he really put his arm in front of him to let others feel if he had any bones. Wrong topic. Yes, he was willing to twist his words and bring it up to this awkward and funny topic in order to make himself laugh and embarrass himself. Understanding this, the willow tree couldn't help but laugh. He looked at Fang Yan and said, do you think you're very funny? Don't praise me like that. Do you think that I won't be able to deal with you if you do this? Why do you want to deal with me? Aren't we friends? Fang Yan said in shock. The willow tree was at a loss for words, but the little brothers behind him began to clamor. Young Master Lu, why are you wasting your breath on him? Why don't we just kill him? Using a wine bottle to break his scoop, this is our specialty. A little teacher dares to act cool in front of our young Master Lu? Why don't you take a mirror and look at yourself? Fang Yan didn't pay attention to the curses of his little brothers. He looked at the willow tree with a smile and said, I want to tell you a secret. What secret? The willow tree asked. I'll tell you, but you can't spread it. Of course, said the willow tree. However, my mouth has never been reliable. I'm relieved to hear that, Fang Yan said. He pointed at Jiang Zhulu and said with a smile, I've known young Master Jiang for a long time. He didn't tell you, did he? The willow tree turned around and glanced at Jiang Zhulu. There are many people in Flower City who know Jiang Zhulu. So what? The muscles on Jiang Zhulio's face twitched imperceptibly. He had a bad feeling. Sure enough, Fang Yan didn't disappoint him. He provoked me, so I broke his head, said Fang Yan. I can understand. He definitely wouldn't tell you such an embarrassing thing. Boom. The crowd was in an uproar. This guy actually injured Jiang Zhulu, one of the 4 young masters of Flower City? The willow tree's eyes trembled slightly. His expression when he looked at Fang Yan changed slightly. He knew better than anyone what kind of personality Jiang Zhulu had. He was a gentleman on the surface, but he was a ferocious wolf and mad dog in the dark. He viewed his face as important as his life. If anyone offended him, he would fight them to the death. Other than the fact that the 2 families were in-laws, the willow tree was also willing to be close to Jiang Zhulu for this reason. Who would want to be enemies with a mad dog? However, Jiang Zhulu provoked Fang Yan and he broke his head. How could there be such a thing? Jiang Zhuliu's head was broken, and the culprit who injured him was still alive and well, accompanying Lu Chaoga to eat a candlelit dinner. What kind of background did this guy have? The information contained in Fang Yan's words was too much. The willow tree had no choice but to carefully consider it. What was even more hateful was that Jiang Zhulu clearly knew what kind of person Fang Yan was, but he didn't warn him at all and allowed him to have a conflict with him. He suggested for him to accompany him to drink with Lu Chaoga. He should be trying to make use of him, right? His thoughts turned in a flash. The willow tree immediately redefined his role in this conflict. Do you think I'll believe you? The willow tree sneered. This is the first time we've met, right? I don't know who you are, I don't know where you're from, so why should I believe what you say? Why don't you believe me? Fang Yan's face was full of anger, as if he had suffered a great grievance. He looked at Jiang Zhulu and said, tell them, did I break your head? Jiang Zhuliu's expression was ferocious. He wanted nothing more than to slap Fang Yan to death on the spot. You asked such a question, how do you want me to answer? Have you considered my feelings? The willow tree turned to look at Jiang Zhulu and said with a smile, Zhulu, is this true? This guy's mouth is full of lies. In any case, I don't believe him. Fang Yan looked at the willow tree thoughtfully. This careless guy with a hedonistic appearance was not simple at all. With just a few words he had dissociated himself from the matter and dragged Jiang Zhulu back into the fray, making him confront him directly. Such an opponent made it impossible to not be on guard. Jiang Zhulu was in a dilemma. He said he didn't, but the image of Fang Yan slapping him again and again was like a thick sore that had taken root and sprouted on his body. If he didn't squeeze the thick fluid out, his body would forever be in pain and his heart would never be at peace. If his answer was yes, then how could he, Jiang Zhongzhu, one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing, establish himself in the circle of young masters in Huaqing? He couldn't even deal with a school teacher. This in itself was a sign of incompetence. Tell him the answer, Fang Yan said to Jiang Zhulu. If you dare to say no, then I won't admit to it anymore. Even Lu Chaoga was shocked by Fang Yan's words. Previously, when Fang Yan said he slapped Jiang Zhulu, she, like the others, didn't believe it. However, looking at Jiang Zhuliu's expression, it was possible that something like that really happened. This seemingly harmless guy was actually so ferocious when he was angry? And when did this happen? Why hadn't she heard of it before? Revenge is a dish best served cold. Our debt will be settled slowly. Jiang Zhulu laughed. His smile was gentle, but his eyes were filled with murderous intent. I'm not in a hurry. You don't have to be either. Lu Shu was shocked. He looked at Jiang Zhulu and didn't speak rashly. Jiang Zhulu didn't deny it. This matter had already been confirmed. Since the two of them already had a grudge, there was no need for him to jump out and be cannon fodder. However, this guy was really annoying. Fang Yan looked at Lu Shu and said, Look, Jiang Zhulu of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing was beaten badly by me. In the end, he could only say some harsh words to me. If I did this to you, you'd be standing here awkwardly, wouldn't you? Is this a threat? Are you sure you can walk out of this private room after hitting me? Lu Shu squinted his eyes. Are you sure you can walk out of Air Force One? You don't understand what I mean. Fang Yan said with a smile. What I mean is, you guys are wearing custom-made clothes and leather shoes from British or French designers. There's no need for you guys to have a grudge with a guy like me who wears a $200 Rosefinch secondary teacher uniform, right? If you spit on me, I can wipe it off with a tissue and continue wearing it. I won't feel disgusted. However, if I spit on you guys won't be able to take it and throw away your clothes, right? What a pity. That's true. Lu Shu nodded. Porcelain shouldn't collide with earthen jars. Young Master Lu is a smart person. You're much wiser than young Master Jiang. Fang Yan said with praise. He didn't forget to put medicine in the eyes of these 2 brothers. In any case, the little secret he told Lu Shu had already planted a thorn in their hearts. They just had to wait for the day that thorn to grow and pierce through their flesh. But what if the earthen jar touches the porcelain? What should we do? Lu Shu asked. That kind of thing will never happen. Fang Yan said. I don't have money, connections, or looks like you guys. Why should I offend you guys? I'm just a little teacher. I want to teach my students well. My biggest dream is to let them beat Class 1 in the next exam. Why should I touch you guys? Why should I get involved in these boring things that I don't understand at all? You guys are fighting in the real world and I'm watching family gossip on TV. If it wasn't for today's dinner, we might never see each other again. The dishes are getting cold. Don't disturb our dinner, okay? Lu Shu looked at Jiang Zhulu, meaning to say, you should solve the problem yourself. Jiang Zhulu smiled at Lu Chaoga and said, since it's not convenient for you today, let's go back and have a good talk. I wish you a good appetite. Under Jiang Zhuliu's lead, the group walked out in a line. However, everyone couldn't help but glance at the spot where Fang Yan was standing when they stepped out of the door. They could guarantee that they would never forget this delicate yet incomparably arrogant face. The private room regained its silence. Fang Yan sat back in his chair and stuffed the tablecloth back into his chest. He said, let's eat. The dishes are getting cold. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yan with a complicated expression, as if it was the first time they met. Chapter 150. Human Ruffian, Lu Shu said. This kind of person is a human ruffian. The so-called human ruffian was someone who placed himself in a very low position. If he told others that he was a pile of shit and you stepped on him, wouldn't that be dirtying the soles of your shoes? If you were barefoot or wearing a pair of cloth shoes, it didn't matter if you stepped on him. At most you could wash your feet or change your shoes. If you were wearing a pair of expensive leather shoes made by a famous designer in Milan, it would be bad to step on it. Although they didn't care about the price of a pair of leather shoes, they didn't like the stench that came from their feet all the time. There's a popular law of garbage people in society now. Jiang Zhulu smiled bitterly and said, a lot of people are like garbage people. They run around and are full of negative garbage. They are full of frustration, anger, jealousy, scheming, hatred, arrogance and prejudice, greed and inadequacy, complaining, comparing and can't stand to see others better than them. As more and more garbage accumulates in their hearts, they need to find a place to dump it. Unfortunately, I happened to meet such a person. I was spat on, but I couldn't do anything as vulgar and rude as him. So it's over? Lu Shu swirled the red wine glass in his hand and asked with a smile. Two women sat on either side of him. One was young and fashionable and the other was full of charm. The two women were beautiful and they didn't look like prostitutes at all. One look and you could tell that they were ladies from respectable families. The two women looked peaceful and friendly on the surface, but their words and actions were hidden with murderous intent. In order to win Lu Shu's favor, they always had to get rid of their opponents first. This was exactly what Lu Shu liked. He liked women to fight for his affections and he liked women to plot against each other for his sake. Moreover, he was a very fair judge. The final winner would eventually enter his arms and become the woman he loved dearly. A temporary woman. This was a game, but he never got tired of it. Of the four beauties of Huaqing, Lu Shu was the most romantic by nature. He was invincible in the field of love and had never lost. Let it go? Jiang Zhulu squinted his eyes and smiled. He gulped down the unfermented red wine in his hand and said with a smile, how could I let it go like this? Young Master Jiang, who is this guy? Someone asked curiously. Is that important? Jiang Zhulu sneered. This is Flower City. Yes. This is Flower City. The willow tree nodded. He reached out and hugged the sexy and plump woman. On the other side, the young and inexperienced girl immediately blushed and felt extremely sad. This is our territory. We can do whatever we want. Do what you want. Jiang Zhulu poured himself another glass of red wine and said, Lu Chaoga seems to be going further and further. You still like her. The willow tree laughed out loud. I really didn't expect that one of our Flower City's four prodigies, young Master Jiang, would actually be so infatuated with love. There are plenty of fish in the sea, so why should I have a one-sided love for a flower? Have you ever thought that the Lu Chaoga that you have bitterly loved for so many years might have already been taken by that little teacher? They hugged, kissed, and caressed. That scoundrel used all the methods he could think of to possess her. If you think that way, don't you like her even more? Jiang Zhulu was trying to use him to fight against Fang Yan. This made Lu Shu feel extremely uncomfortable. If he could make Jiang Zhulu feel uncomfortable, he didn't mind fulfilling his wish. Lu Shu, do you believe that I won't tear your stinky mouth apart? Jiang Zhulu fiercely stared at the willow tree and said, Pa, did I hit your sore spot? Everything is possible. The willow tree laughed wildly as if he had encountered the most hilarious thing in the world. As the two top young masters, Lu Shu and Jiang Zhulu, bickered, Everyone else was silent. They lowered their heads to drink and eat, pretending not to hear what they were saying. A fight of this level wasn't something they could interfere with. If Fang Yan suddenly beat up Lu Shu or Jiang Zhulu in anger, Lu Chaoge wouldn't find it strange at all. Didn't Qianya Haowu of the Warren investigation group sneak attack Tang Chung from the back like this? It was simply impossible for him to abide by discipline rules, or to constantly pay attention to his surroundings and maintain his rationality. Fang Yan didn't care about Lu Shu and Jiang Zhulio's identities and backgrounds. If they really provoked him, he didn't mind teaching them a lesson. Just like how he knew Jiang Zhulio's personality from slapping him in the face. However, Fang Yan didn't beat them up. Moreover, not only did he not beat them up, but he also planted a patch of thorns on Jiang Zhulio's skin with a few simple words. When they wanted to get closer again, the patch of thorns would pop out and stab each other's bodies, making it difficult for them to hug each other as tightly as before. Fang Yan wasn't a martial artist but a boorish man. He was scheming and intelligent. Martial arts experts were cultured. Just thinking about it was scary. Fang Yan cut a piece of beef and stuffed it into his mouth. He chewed it gently and enjoyed the extreme taste of the snowflake beef ribs flown in from Australia. The food is getting cold, Fang Yan reminded Lu Chaoge when he saw her standing there motionlessly. Lu Chaoge pulled out a chair and sat across from Fang Yan. She picked up the knife and fork and unconsciously cut the steak, but she didn't have any appetite. A luxurious car, a luxurious house, a luxurious dress, and a publicly recognized proud daughter of heaven, Fang Yan said. It seems like you aren't living as well as we thought. Who has it easy? Lu Chaoge said expressionlessly. Everyone has their own difficulties. You have your difficulties, Lu Shu has his difficulties, and Jiang Zhulu also has. You were right to reject Jiang Zhulu, Fang Yan said. This person has no bearing. We were just having a meal together as normal subordinates and friends, and then he brought his people over to cause trouble. Is this what a man should do? Anyway, I can't do it. If you were him, what would you do? Lu Chaoge asked. I would directly beat myself up, then pull out a chair and sit across from you, Fang Yan said. If you don't have bearing, then do things with generosity. You have to have a different temperament to attract women. Especially a woman like you. Am I right? What is your different temperament? Me. Fang Yan thought seriously and said, the natural kindness in my bones. The rain was getting heavier and heavier. The rainwater on the ground that couldn't be drained in time was rising, and it was already overflowing the mountains. The wind was howling and the black clouds were rolling. The rain was so dense that it was difficult to see with the naked eye. I will send you back, Lu Chaoge said while looking at the rain outside. If I had a car, I would say this to you, Fang Yan said with embarrassment. There was still some distance between the main entrance of Sky No. 1 and the parking lot. The security guard ran over with 2 umbrellas, one big and one small. He used the small umbrella to cover himself, and the big umbrella to cover Fang Yan and Lu Chaoge, ready to send them to the parking lot to pick up the car. Swoosh. Fang Yan's shoes were drenched as soon as they came out of the rainforest. Lu Chaoge, who was wearing high heels, actually had some advantage in the air. The rain was heavy and rapid. Fang Yan and Lu Chaoge's bodies could only stick close to each other to avoid being drenched by the splashing rain. Lu Chaoge's uniform skirt was blown by the strong wind, sticking tightly to her thighs. Her exposed calves were snow-white and dazzling. When the raindrops landed on them, it gave people a faint feeling of being wet and seductive. A faint fragrance, like the fragrance of orchids, came to their noses. It was very pleasant. Even with the heavy rain and the strong wind, Lu Chaoge still walked calmly and elegantly. This woman was indeed outstanding in her own way. In order to take care of the guests, the security guard's clothes were drenched, dripping with water. Sorry to trouble you, Fang Yan said with embarrassment. It's my job. The security guard smiled honestly. When he smiled, 2 small dimples appeared on his face. According to physiognomy, people with small dimples on their faces loved others more. It seemed that he must be a good son and a good husband. After a pause, he said, You are different from the other guests. How is it different? No one said thank you before, the security guard said. In order to block the strong wind from behind and the falling rain, the security guard tried his best to lower the umbrella. Fang Yan and Lu Chaoge could only look forward. Their line of sight behind was completely blocked. Rumble, Lightning flashed and thunder roared. White light streaked across the sky. It was as if the sky was about to be torn apart. For no reason, Fang Yan suddenly felt goosebumps all over his body. There was a strong chill on his back. Danger! Get out of the way, Fang Yan roared. He suddenly pushed Lu Xiaoge to the side and the two of them rolled and slid in the rain. When the security guard heard Fang Yan's shout, he didn't react at all. Before he could turn around, his body was sent flying into the air like a kite with a broken string. His pupils widened. He couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. Everything was fine. Why was there a super off-road vehicle rushing over from behind? Even if there was a car driving over, they should have turned on the lights and honked. Why did they sneak over? And how could they drive at such a fast speed in front of the restaurant? He couldn't understand. Bang! His body landed heavily on the ground and slid a long distance in the muddy ground before stopping. Xiao Bao. He tried hard to call out the name, but a large amount of thick blood spurted out of his mouth. Soon enough, his body stopped twitching. His eyes were wide open. He died with a grievance. The small black umbrella in his hand flew out, fluttering in the air, carried by the strong wind to an unknown place. Chapter 151. One flower, one world, one leaf, one Bodhi. Under the vast galaxy and endless starry sky, he was just an insignificant person. But in the hearts of his family, his parents, his wife and his children, he was the whole world. An insignificant person had flesh and blood. He had family, friends, parents with gray hair, a wife who knew how to cry, and ignorant and helpless children. He didn't want to die. He also wanted to live. But would the executioner discuss with them in advance? Would they ask for their opinions when they were harvesting lives? No one cared about their life or death. Even if their names appeared on the newspaper, they would soon be drowned out by the scandals of celebrities and even more miserable lives. He was just a small security guard. No one even remembered his name. Except for his family. His body lay in the muddy water, cold, wet, stiff, unwilling, broken and badly mutilated. No one heard his last murmur. No one heard the name Xiao Bao. That was his son who had just turned 1 month old. That was his flesh and blood that he was unwilling to part with. But who cared? It was a black Toyota off-road. It didn't turn on the headlights or honk the horn. It sped through the heavy rain, and under the cover of the lightning and thunder, without any warning, it charged towards their backs, towards their defenseless bodies. This was murder. The Toyota off-road did not stop at all after crashing into the person. It ran wildly toward the exit of the restaurant. This scene was so sudden and violent that no one could make an effective response. When Fang Yan and Lu Xiaoge stopped rolling, when Fang Yan got up from the ground and wanted to chase after them, the Toyota off-road had already rushed to the main road and soon disappeared in the storm. They couldn't catch up with it. They couldn't kill it. It made them feel powerless and humiliated. More and more people gathered. The security guard, the staff, and the distinguished guests at the door. Fang Yan squatted in the rain beside the security guard. He reached out to touch his chest, but there was no longer any breath. He was dead. "Sorry to trouble you," Fang Yan said. "It's my job." The security guard smiled honestly. "You are different from the other guests." "How is it different?" "No one said thank you before." The person who was just talking to him warmly a moment ago had already been separated by life and death. Fang Yan regretted that he did not spend more time with him and did not thank him properly. He should have taken him to a restaurant not too high class, preferably a roadside food stall. They would not drink Maotai or Wuliangye, but a bottle of Xiaodao or Erguotu. Everyone would roll up their sleeves, play a guessing game, grease their mouths, slap the table, curse and get drunk. There was also a deep sense of guilt. "I'm the same as them," Fang Yan said to the security guard in his heart with tears in his eyes. When danger approached, his first reaction was to throw Lu Xiaoge to the ground. Yes, in that extremely dangerous situation where he had no time to think, he chose to save Lu Xiaoge, who he was more familiar with. He saved her life, but at the same time he gave up on her. He was just a security guard. Who cares? He was just a security guard who would care. He was just a security guard who would care. "Lu Jinju, wake up. Lu Jinju." Someone shook his body and shouted. His name was Lu Jinju. Although he was just a security guard, it did not prevent his parents from giving him such a shiny name. Just like he was a security guard, but he also named his son Xiaobao. There was a difference in status, but there was no family love. "What's going on? What's going on? Call the police. Someone died, call the police. A security guard was crushed to death. What bad luck to encounter such a thing while having a meal. The rain was pattering and the wind was howling. From time to time lightning flashed in the sky, illuminating all the filth on the ground. Countless sounds echoed in his ears and countless faces appeared in his mind. Fang Yan looked like he was scared out of his wits. He squatted there without moving. What's going on? Did you see that? What happened? Someone shouted at him. I saw it, Fang Yan said. Someone killed him with a car. What car? A black Toyota off-road. What license plate? I didn't see it clearly. Lu Shu, Jiang Zhulu and the others also came out. They were shocked to see Fang Yan beside the dead body and Lu Chaoge who was sitting on the ground and still couldn't get up. Jiang Zhulu took off his suit jacket and quickly ran to Lu Chaoge. He put the suit jacket on Lu Chaoge's head, then bent down to pick her up and ran to the hotel lobby. Lu Chaoge's right knee was bruised and blood was oozing out. The blood mixed with the rainwater on her leg and was instantly diluted. Therefore the wound seemed to be softer and it was not so shocking. Her left leg was sprained, and her waist and leg were seriously injured in many places. Even the slightest movement would cause a heart-wrenching pain. Just the moment Fang Yan threw her to the ground was enough to make her dizzy. Rolling all the way on the concrete floor caused her serious injuries, and there were many cuts on her body. Jiang Zhulu put Lu Chaoge on the sofa in the lobby and asked anxiously, Lu Chaoge, are you okay? How do you feel? Lu Chaoge shook her head and looked at Fang Yan through the glass wall in the rain. Her eyes were sad. What happened? Why did this happen? Jiang Zhulu was like an enraged lion shouting angrily. It's just a meal, how could someone be injured like this? Who did it? Lu Chaoge remained silent and didn't answer. Jiang Zhulu turned around and shouted to little Fatso, Zhang Wei, call your dad. Ask him to investigate for me. No matter who did it, ask him to find the person. Little Fatso nodded and walked out quickly. Dusan, call your uncle and ask him to help me find the person. Tell him that I, Jiang Zhulu, owe him a favor. A skinny monkey-like man answered and ran out as well. Lu Shu walked to Jiang Zhulu with a serious expression and patted him on the shoulder. Calm down. How can I calm down when Chaoge is injured like this? Jiang Zhulu said coldly. Have you thought about it? Lu Shu smiled darkly. Who's the biggest suspect now that something like this happened? Jiang Zhu looked at the willow tree with a stunned expression. He immediately understood what the willow tree was trying to say. Something unpleasant just happened between us. Why did they get into a car accident right after they left? Lu Shu said seriously, I've already asked around. Someone drove a car into them from behind. If it weren't for that kid's quick reflexes, Lu Chaoge would be dead already. Who? Jiang Zhulu asked. How would I know? The willow tree shrugged helplessly. I don't know. All I know is that you're the biggest suspect now. How could I do something like this? Why can't you do something like this? The world is dangerous and people are evil. Lu Shu sighed. Fang Yan's clothes were soaked. Not just his body but his heart as well. His head and face were drenched in rain, and his hair stuck to his scalp like a black skullcap. He clenched his teeth and strode toward the lobby of the restaurant. He stared at Lu Xiaoge with a fierce look as if he was about to devour him. Seeing Fang Yan's fierce look, Jiang Zhulu immediately stood in front of Lu Chaoge and pointed at Fang Yan. Fang Yan, what are you doing? Screech. Fang Yan didn't say anything. He just grabbed Jiang Zhulio's finger with lightning speed. Fang Yan let go. Jiang Zhulio's finger hurt and he couldn't move his body. Harder. Harder. Jiang Zhulio's finger was bent by him. Crack. A crisp sound rang out and Jiang Zhulio's finger was forcefully broken. Lu Shu was about to step forward to stop Fang Yan, but the two bodyguards behind him had already surrounded Fang Yan from both sides. Horsetail whisk. Fang Yan grabbed the shoulder of one of the bodyguards. With a twist of his body, a strong airflow appeared and the bodyguard was sent flying. Bang! His body fell heavily on the wall. His face was bleeding and he couldn't get up anymore. The other bodyguard's hand had already touched Fang Yan's chest, but Fang Yan quickly rushed forward and took the initiative to use his body to meet his fist, toppling the mountains and overturning the seas. Bang! The bodyguard in black let out a blood-curdling scream as he flew backwards and fell to the ground. The arm that Fang Yan used to push, his chest had lost all feeling. More people rushed toward Fang Yan. Fang Yan didn't dodge and attacked every enemy he saw. Those who stretched out their arms broke their arms. Those who stretched out their legs broke their legs. Those who used both their arms and legs broke their arms and legs. Very soon there was no one in front of him to stop him. The ground was filled with screams and wails, but Fang Yan turned a blind eye to them. Fang Yan, you better know what you're doing right now. Lu Shu snorted. I've never been more clear-headed than now. Fang Yan said. If I had beaten you up just now, I'm afraid the current situation would be better. Lu Shu stared coldly at Fang Yan, who was displaying his invincible might. The two women beside him, one on his left and the other on his right, looked terrified. Fang Yan walked in front of Lu Chaoga, picked her up and quickly walked toward the private room. Bang! Fang Yan kicked open an empty private room, and threw Lu Chaoga's body on the sofa inside the private room. His eyes were bloodshot and he shouted hoarsely, Lu Chaoga, how long are you going to use me? Chapter 152. Her long hair was tangled and looked very messy, and it was wet and scattered over her shoulders. His face and forehead had several cuts of different depths, and each cut was oozing out thick or thin wisps of blood. Her clothes were soaked, and the white shirt on her upper body was in a translucent state, and the black bra inside was faintly discernible. The silver-gray pencil skirt was tightly ironed on her body, perfectly outlining the exquisite curves, and naked tempted the eyes of the onlookers. In the process of falling and rolling, 2 buttons on her shirt were pulled out, and a big hole was torn in the pencil skirt. They were barely able to cover the important parts of her body, but there was still a large area of her snow-white skin exposed in the air. The independent private room, the wet mature woman, the torn expensive clothes, and even the wounds on her face and knees were the culprits that triggered a man's adrenaline rush. The bag that Lu Chaoga carried with her was gone, and her cell phone, keys and other items were also gone. She had nothing on her now and was just an unlucky woman who was injured. Fang Yan threw her body on the sofa with great force, and in the process of flying and falling in the air, it once again affected her sprained leg bone and waist. She put her hands on the sofa, gritted her teeth and sat up little by little. She had to sit up and she had to straighten her back so that she could look more dignified and strong. She didn't want to be a yes man, and she was even more disdainful of using a woman's natural softness and weakness to win a man's sympathy. Lu Chaoga sat up straight and combed her hair with her fingers, preventing the long hair from covering her face and eyes. She looked at Fang Yan calmly and said, I'm also very sad that he's dead. I'm very sorry and I don't know how to apologize and make up for it. What's the use of apologizing? He's already dead, what's the use of apologizing? Fang Yan roared. What are you going to use to make up for it? Can you be his parents' son? Can you replace him as his wife's husband and child's father? Lu Chaoga, you're not omnipotent, you can't do anything. Yes. Lu Chaoga said. I can't do anything. He couldn't even protect his own life. I'm just a nobody, just like that security guard. Lu Chaoga, what exactly do you want? Fang Yan stared coldly at Lu Chaoga and said with hatred, how many times have I told you? I'm not stupid. Have you been questioning my words all this time? I can joke about everything, but I will never joke about my intelligence and my life with you. You think I don't know what you've done? What do I have to do with you? Did I hold your hand? Did I touch your breasts? Did I have sex with you? I didn't do anything. Why does Jiang Zhulu view me as a mortal enemy? Why do so many people want to get rid of me? Lu Chaoga, you did it on purpose. You purposely maintained a close relationship with me. You purposely pushed me out to attract the firepower for you. When I first came to school you admired me, but you always kept your distance. What have you been doing these days? You asked Xiaoming to call me to the office every day. You pretended to discuss everything with me, big or small, even things that had nothing to do with me. Do you think I didn't suspect your motive at all? Also, who was the one who spread the rumors in school? You're the vice principal of the school. If you want to control them, would they dare to discuss these topics in the office? What do you want to say? You want to say that you didn't? Of course you didn't. You're the vice principal of the school. You're the high and mighty ice goddess. Of course you wouldn't take the initiative to run out and tell others that I'm related to Fang Yan and that we're in love. Of course you wouldn't do such a stupid thing. But do you dare to say that you didn't add fuel to the fire in the dark? You didn't let it develop? Lu Chaoga looked gloomy and kept silent. Lu Chaoga, I know what kind of woman you are. You're proud and arrogant. You never put anyone in your eyes. Although I think I'm very good, I really didn't think that I could enter your eyes. On the first day I came, Xing Jing, your office director, reminded me to be careful and keep a distance from you. Now it seems that he wasn't all bad. That night you leaned your head on my shoulder to intensify the conflict, right? But you didn't have to do that, but why did you do that? To teach those who hide in the shadows a lesson? Because you two quarreled, I became the punching bag for you to take revenge on him. Or you felt the danger, so you sped up your actions so that they would focus their attention and revenge on me? Even if you die, you want to drag me to die with you? Do I occupy such an important position in your heart? Fang Yan stretched out his hands to grab Lu Chaoga's shoulders. He asked in a disgusted tone, Lu Chaoga, say something. Give me an explanation, give me an answer. You used me so many times and almost took away my life. You have to give me an explanation, right? Lu Chaoga calmly looked at Wen Yan's face that had become distorted at this moment. She said, you're smarter than I thought and more powerful than I expected. Since you've guessed everything, what else do you want to know? What do I want to know? I want to know everything. Fang Yan pushed Lu Chaoga to the ground. I knew you used me over and over again. In the past, I thought you were pretty and not a bad person, so I was willing to do some things for you. But now someone is dead. The security guard who was chatting with us just now is dead. He died right under our noses. You have to give me a clear explanation. Why did you do that? Who wanted to kill you? Why did they want to kill you? I also want to know who wanted to kill me. Lu Chaoga stubbornly climbed up again. A mocking smile appeared on her face. I also want to know who wanted to kill me. Where can I find the answer? Who can tell me the answer? Her eyes reddened and then became moist. If possible, also tell me, who killed my parents? Why did they want to kill them? What? Do it. Fang Yan's eyes widened. He looked at Lu Chaoga in disbelief. There was actually such a thing? Lu Chaoga's parents were already gone? Wasn't she a noble daughter? Wasn't she a match for Jiang Zhulu? Their parents didn't arrange their marriage. Jiang Zhulu fell in love with Lu Chaoga at first sight. Lu Chaoga was deeply in love with a loser outside. Her parents tried to stop her lover, but in the end the rich girl and the loser man got married. Or the lover turned into a butterfly. The former was Prince Charming and the latter was butterfly lovers. Wasn't the story like this? Why was it so different from what Fang Yan had guessed? However, if Lu Chaoga's parents were already dead, then who was she living with now? How did she get her expensive clothes and luxurious cars worth millions every day? Just the salary of a vice principal shouldn't be enough to support her expenses. Fang Yan remembered clearly that the dinner tonight cost nearly 10,000 yuan. That was a month's salary for many people. What happened? Fang Yan asked in a hoarse voice. After so many years, I can't even remember what they look like. Maybe I subconsciously don't want to think about it. Because every time I think about it. Lu Chaoga's voice paused for a few seconds. It was as if she was thinking about how to phrase her words. However, she was stumped by this question. After a long time he continued, maybe he shed too many tears when he was young and his tears dried up. So, I don't know how to cry now. At that time I was too young and didn't understand a lot of things. I only remember that I was still in elementary school. Auntie suddenly came to school during class. She said a few words to the teacher and then took me back. That was my least favorite language class. I was so happy that I didn't have to go to class anymore. On the way back, Auntie hugged me and cried non-stop. She kept talking about what to do in the future, what to do in the future. Only then did I know that my parents had passed away. They died on a trip. In the country that was known as the closest to heaven, they were robbed by gangsters. They refused to hand over their belongings, so those vicious gangsters with knives killed them all. They passed away just like that. I couldn't even see them for the last time. Auntie and Qiang Long Tan went abroad to handle the funeral. My parents, they became a small urn. What happened after that? Fang Yan asked. After that, Auntie had to go abroad to work. I was taken to live with Qiang Long Tan. Except for the years I went abroad to study and work until now, Lu Chaoga said. Why? Fang Yan frowned and asked. He felt that there was something wrong with this matter, but he couldn't tell what was wrong with it at the moment. Qiang Long Tan is Jiang Zhuliu's father? He is friends with your father? Or are you saying that your families are related? They are very good friends and business partners, Lu Chaoge said. My parents are engineers. They mainly research renewable energy. My parents invested their technology and Qiang Longtan invested money. They formed a company together which is now the famous Longtu Group. I know a little about Longtu Group. It started with energy technology and has developed rapidly. It is now a comprehensive business empire. In the field of energy technology, Longtu can be ranked in the top 5 in the former country and the number 1 in Lingnan. Fang Yan thought about it and said, I heard you calling Qiang Longtan's name. He takes care of you so much. Don't you have the slightest bit of respect for him? Chapter 153. The grace of a drop of water must be repaid with a fountain of water. After Lu Chaoge's parents passed away, Qiang Longtan adopted her and provided for her to eat. Logically speaking, Lu Chaoge should be grateful to the Jiang family. How could she call his name so emotionlessly? Fang Yan was very sensitive to details, so he easily found the problem in Lu Chaoge's words. You think I should be grateful to him, right? A sneer appeared on Lu Chaoge's face. Everyone in the world thinks that I should be grateful to him. If he hadn't adopted me, I would have been alone and without anyone to rely on. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to study abroad, and I wouldn't have achieved what I have today. If it wasn't for him, I would have nothing. I would have been a nameless, ordinary woman who couldn't even dream of having a meal at Sky Number 1. So, I want to call Qiang Longtan my adoptive father and I want to marry his son Jiang Zhulu. I want to give them everything they want. I can't refuse or resist, or else I'll be disloyal, unfilial, heartless and unjust. Is this the only way I can repay them for adopting me? Is this the only way I can be a grateful, affectionate and righteous woman? You. Fang Yan thought for a moment, then said, you seem to be very depressed. Depressed? Wu Chaoge laughed out loud. This is depression. My parents died for no reason, but I was adopted by a family that might be the murderer. My aunt was threatened, went abroad and never took the initiative to contact me again. When she left, she told me that she was going to the United States, but I couldn't find any trace of her being there when I went to study there. My parents own 49% of the shares in the Longtu Group, but as their only heir I've never seen any profits, only the so-called dividends that they pay into my card every year. Outsiders only see that I'm living a luxurious life, luxurious cars and luxurious houses, so they think that the Jiang family treats me like their own child. But how much profit do they take from the company? They smile at each other every day and they look kind and kind. One of them announced to everyone that I was the best candidate for her daughter-in-law, while the other treated me like his own daughter, not even comparable to his own son. Everyone praised her for being a good mother and everyone praised him for being a good father. However, the more they acted like this, the more I couldn't resist them. Otherwise, you're heartless, ungrateful and vicious. Even when I wanted to live outside, I was rejected by them. They said that living together as a family would be more intimate and warm. Should I be grateful? Lu Chaoge stared at Fang Yan and asked. Should I thank them? He said I don't know how to smile. How can I smile in such an environment? Fang Yan didn't expect Lu Chaoge's background to be so complicated, nor did he expect her to live in such a harsh environment. Even if there was no real evidence, she had already determined that the Jiang family had something to do with her parents' death. However, she could pretend that nothing had happened and live with them calmly and naturally as if she was really a family with them. How strong and tenacious was this woman's endurance? How broad-minded was he? Fang Yan didn't think he could do it. If he stood in Lu Chaoge's position, he would have fought with them fiercely. However, Lu Chaoge did it. She was looking for evidence and she was waiting for the best opportunity. Is this Qiang Longtan or Jiang Biehe? Fang Yan said angrily. The more kind and righteous a person is on the surface, the more immoral they are when they do bad things. You said that Qiang Longtan might be the murderer of your parents. Do you have any evidence? No. Lu Chaoge shook her head. When they had the accident, I was too young. I didn't have time to see them for the last time. My aunt couldn't bring back their bodies and only a part of their ashes was burned together. After so many years, if the other party was careful, how could I find any evidence? Your aunt might know something. Fang Yan said. Did you look for her again? Yes. Lu Chaoge said angrily. It was like she disappeared from this world. Or maybe she really disappeared. It was because I couldn't find her that I began to suspect that my parents' death might be a conspiracy. This suspicion is very reasonable, Fang Yan said. His eyes were cold and he said with a murderous look, in other words, this car accident might have been arranged by the Jiang family? I don't know. Lu Chaoge said. All my property and connections are under their surveillance. I don't have anyone I can use. Even if I wanted to investigate something, it would be difficult to do it independently. Your appearance is a variable. Then, why did you suddenly start to use me more? You're much closer to me now than before. Because I feel danger, Lu Chaoge said. In the past they've never urged me to marry Jiang Zhulu like this. What if we get married? I'll become a member of the Jiang family, Lu Chaoge said. In other words, the Jiang family has complete control over the Longtu group? Yes, Lu Chaoge said. One of the executives in the Longtu group was my father's classmate. He told me that Qiang Longtan has been quietly diluting the shares that belonged to my father. Recently he even tried to change the name of the patent that originally belonged to my parents. If the owner of the patent changed it, then it would be easy for them to kick my father and me out of the Longtu group. The Lu family will no longer have anything to do with the Longtu group. They really have to be tough with both hands. Fang Yan sneered. On one hand they want you to become a member of the Jiang family. This way it will be easier for them to control you. They will even force you to agree to change the owner of the patent. On the other hand, they take care of you in every possible way. If you jump out and fight with them for the shares, I'm afraid everyone will stand up and blame you. Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoge and said, since they want you to become a member of the Jiang family, why did this happen today? They are here for you, they want to kill you. I don't know. Lu Chaoge shook her head. I don't know anything, just like you. I have never understood them and I don't know how to understand them. You would never be able to experience that kind of feeling. Even if everyone sat at the same table to eat, everyone's face was covered with a thick layer of film. Everything could be a disguise. Every one of them was a master of acting. I have lived in the Jiang family for so many years, so I learned to act like them. I learned to be calm and collected and learned that no one can read my mind. This is my biggest gain. Sadness is not a reason to be forgiven. That security guard died because of me. I feel very guilty. But I have no other choice. Lu Chaoge said. I should have died with him. You helped me make the choice. You saved my life. They are insane. A living being was sent flying by them just like that. They want to kill you and me at the same time. It doesn't matter to them whether they kill one person or 3 people. Fang Yan's anger completely exploded and he said in a cold voice, I don't care who they are, no matter what their status is. If they want me dead, I will never let them live well. I promise. Then you will be used by me again. Lu Chaoge said. In the past it was Lu Chaoge who took the initiative to drag Fang Yan into the battlefield, and she became the vanguard of this war. After the tragedy at Sky 1, Fang Yan began to take the initiative to find out the truth of the accident, and he volunteered to join the battle. Because he couldn't let the security guard die in vain, he couldn't let himself suffer such grievances. He could ignore Lu Chaoge, he could ignore the security guard, but he couldn't ignore himself. As for the process of revenge, he would be more closely allied with Lu Chaoge, and even help her bear the main artillery fire. That wasn't the most important thing. Knock knock. Someone was knocking on the door outside. Fang Yan, come out quickly, bring Lu Chaoge out if anything happens to her. Jiang Zhuyo's urgent voice sounded outside the room. The person inside, listen, you are surrounded. This was the voice of a strange man. Don't act rashly, let go of the hostage, put your hands on your head and squat on the ground. We will attack in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, bang. The door of the room was kicked open, and a group of armed policemen rushed in, pointing their guns at Fang Yan and Lu Chaoge, who was hugging Fang Yan. Yes, Fang Yan and Lu Chaoge's bodies were tightly hugging each other. Lu Chaoge's body leaned weakly on the sofa and Fang Yan's body was on top of her, one hand caressing under her clothes, the other hand holding her neck, pulling her upper body closer to him. They hugged passionately and kissed passionately. They were so unemotional, as if everything in this world had nothing to do with them. All they needed were those red lips and a scorching hot body. Gotcha. Many people subconsciously pointed their guns at the ground. Even more people widened their eyes. Didn't they say, there was a kidnapper? Why did they only see a pervert? Jiang Zhulu stood behind the crowd, seeing the scene inside the room. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets and he pointed at Fang Yan and shouted, "Fang Yan, you dare touch my woman!" "She is my woman," Fang Yan said without turning his head. Chapter 154. Jiang Zhuliu's pupils dilated, his chest was stuffy and hot, and his fingers were stinging. They were broken by Fang Yan. All kinds of discomfort mixed together and he felt like his body was about to explode. The woman who grew up with him, the woman whom he regarded as his life partner and marriage partner, was now lying on the sofa in a sexy and seductive position. An annoying little wretch was pressing on top of her, using his hands and mouth to diligently study and work hard to obtain. Anyone who saw this scene would have the urge to pick up a knife and fight to the death. This should have been what he did, and he had imagined this scene countless times. But why did it turn out like this? Why was the truth so cruel and unacceptable? "Kill him," Jiang Zhulu shouted. "He's a kidnapper, kill him quickly." No one would really shoot someone. No one was stupid. How could they shoot someone just because of a sentence from the eldest young master of the Jiang family? Obviously, this was a couple who couldn't control themselves, so they found a private room to make out. What did it have to do with kidnappers kidnapping hostages? At most, they would be charged with a crime of corrupting social morals, which was not serious enough to shoot them to death. "Calm down." Lu Shu walked behind Jiang Zhulu, put his arm around his shoulders and said, "A lot of people are watching you, don't let them look down on you. Don't let them see you as a joke." The pain in his fingers made Jiang Zhulu sober up gradually. He stared at Fang Yan fiercely and said, "Even if he's not a kidnapper, the evidence is conclusive that he beat and injured someone. Are we going to let the murderer get away with it?" A middle-aged police officer came out, pointed at Fang Yan and said, "Take him away." Two police officers quickly came over and dragged Fang Yan, who was still lying on Lu Chaoga's body, and their tongues entangled. Fang Yan looked at the middle-aged police officer and asked, "What did I do that you want to take me away?" "Beat and seriously injured someone. Why can't we take you away?" The middle-aged police officer said with a sneer. Jiang Zhulu didn't like people, so he naturally didn't like them either. Besides, how could a guy who would drag a woman into a private room of a restaurant to have an affair be a good person? "That was self-defense," Fang Yan said confidently. "Are there any surveillance cameras in the hotel lobby?" "Yes," the hotel manager standing outside the private room replied in a low voice. "If there is video surveillance, you can see it in the video. Someone took my girlfriend away. A group of people surrounded my girlfriend and tried to do something bad to her. They also stopped me from getting close to her. In order to protect my girlfriend, I had to take action. I did what every man in the world would do. Was this also a crime? If you want to take me away, they won't be spared either. Your girlfriend." Jiang Zhuliu's breathing was rapid and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked like he was about to go berserk. He said she was his girlfriend? How could his woman, his fiancée, be his girlfriend? "Men!" Jiang Zhulu shouted. "Jiang Zhulu!" The willow tree called out. "Do you know what you're doing? Where did your IQ go? There are police here, what can you do to him? 10 years is not too late for a gentleman to take revenge. There will be plenty of opportunities to play him to death in the future. Why are you in such a hurry? Calm down." "I can't calm down," Jiang Zhulu said. "Willow, I can calm down about other things. But I can't do this. I know I look like an idiot right now. Let me go crazy for once, just this once, no matter what the consequences are." Fang Yan crossed his arms and sneered, "Do you want to beat me up? This is a society governed by law." "You." Jiang Zhulu wanted to rush over and beat up Fang Yan. The willow tree hugged Jiang Zhulu and roared, "Jiang Zhulu, didn't you notice? He is deliberately provoking you. He wants you to take the initiative to make a move. Don't fall for it." Jiang Zhulu knew he couldn't beat Fang Yan, and he also knew that his current behavior was impulsive and irrational. However, Fang Yan was too hateful. Revealing the fact that he was slapped in the face in public had already caused him to lose all face in the circle. Now he actually slept with the woman he liked. Bullsh asterisk T gentlemanly character, Bullsh asterisk T aristocratic demeanor, Bullsh asterisk T rationality and scheming. He just wanted to ruthlessly beat up Fang Yan. Ruthlessly beat him up. But why was it so difficult? Ever since he was young, big young Master Jiang, who was used to having everything he wanted and everything he wanted, had never been so humiliated. After getting to know Fang Yan, he finally understood the true meaning of the phrase "life is hard." Bastard. A deep voice suddenly rang out from outside the private room. Everyone looked out and saw a middle-aged man in a black suit standing behind the crowd with a stern face. He was surrounded by a large group of assistants and bodyguards, looking extraordinary. "Dad!" Jiang Zhulu shouted in surprise. "Uncle Jiang." Lu Shu let go of Jiang Zhuliu's shoulder and took the initiative to greet Qiang Long Tan. The crowd dispersed and Qiang Long Tan walked over with large strides. This was Qiang Long Tan? This was the murderer who might have killed Lu Chaoga's parents? Fang Yan looked him up and down seriously. He looked at his gentle yet sharp eyes, his thick and seemingly stiff eyebrows, his well-maintained skin that shone with a bright luster, and his protruding forehead and thick lips. This was a very charming man. Both his looks and temperament were top-notch. Moreover, he gave off a sense of justice that was dignified without being angry, causing people to naturally feel fear when they saw him. This kind of man was both an official and a wealthy man. He made money from doing business, entered an official career and got promoted. He would never live a mediocre life. Was he really the kind of man that Lu Chaoga had guessed? Qiang Long Tan ignored Jiang Zhuliu's shouts and Lu Shu's greetings. He walked straight to Lu Chaoga, squatted down and asked with concern, "How are your injuries?" He had to admit that this was a very considerate and gentle father. If he hadn't heard Lu Chaoga's story just now, and if it wasn't for his preconceived feelings, he would have been conquered by Qiang Long Tan's attitude towards Lu Chaoga. No wonder Lu Chaoga couldn't breathe in that kind of family. Having a father like this was really stressful. "I'm fine," Lu Chaoga said calmly. She had lived in that family for too many years and was already immune to such care. "Who did it?" Qiang Long Tan asked. Lu Chaoga looked into Qiang Long Tan's eyes and said, "I don't know." "It's fine." Qiang Long Tan patted the back of Lu Chaoga's hand gently. "I'll look into it. I'll find out who it is no matter who it is." Qiang Long Tan got up abruptly and looked at Fang Yan and the agitated Jiang Zhulu. "What's going on?" The middle-aged officer came over and explained the situation to Qiang Long Tan in a low voice. Qiang Long Tan frowned and said, "Jiang Zhulu is Chaoga's younger brother. He's not a stranger and there's no way he's up to no good." Qiang Long Tan's words blocked the loophole of Jiang Zhuliu's false alarm. "Understood," the middle-aged officer said. Qiang Long Tan pointed at Fang Yan, then looked at Lu Chaoga and asked, "He's your friend?" "Yes," Lu Chaoga said. "Chaoga's friend is also Jiang Zhuliu's friend. There's no need to go to the police station to solve a small conflict between friends. Just let it go," Qiang Long Tan said. He turned to look at Fang Yan and said, "The dead should be respected. Let's keep quiet, okay?" Fang Yan was speechless. That was a very good question. If he didn't agree, he would be disrespecting the dead, looking for trouble and being ungrateful. So hard to be a human being. Fang Yan thought to himself. "You want to calm things down, but have you considered how I, the murderer, feel?" "No problem. It's great that we can make it a small matter." The middle-aged officer was overjoyed. Now that the injured party didn't want to pursue the matter, he naturally had peace. "Lu Chaoga is my daughter. My daughter was assassinated in this restaurant. You must help me find the murderer," Qiang Long Tan said to the middle-aged officer this time. "I don't want to wait too long. We'll try our best. We won't let Mr. Jiang down." The middle-aged officer straightened his back and said. Although the person standing in front of him wasn't his immediate superior, he still felt heavy pressure. "I believe you," Qiang Long Tan said. The middle-aged officer wanted to laugh, but he couldn't. Qiang Long Tan walked to Lu Chaoga and said in a low voice, "Let's go. Let's go home." Since Qiang Long Tan came to the scene, it had become his word. Everything was arranged in an orderly manner, and almost no one could raise any objections. Everyone had to agree with him, everyone had to follow his rhythm. This was the charm of a man, the charm of having everything under control. Fang Yan suddenly felt very angry. "You're a bad person, you hypocrite. Why should we listen to your arrangements? Why should we let you take the lead?" Qiang Long Tan was like a peerless martial arts master. As soon as you wanted to punch, the other party had already figured out your fist. As soon as you wanted to kick, he had already blocked your attack. Your actions were transparent in front of him. You were so weak and insignificant compared to him. He didn't like the feeling of being completely controlled. I have to break his control, I have to disrupt his rhythm, a voice in his heart shouted. She won't go back. Fang Yan said aloud. Qiang Longtan turned to look at Fang Yan and asked in a calm voice, why? I haven't thought about it yet. Fang Yan said. She can't go back with you anyway. Chapter 155. Qiang Longtan narrowed his eyes at Fang Yan for a while and said, You're an interesting young man. I won't change my mind even if you compliment me, Fang Yan said with a smirk. Do I look like the kind of man who can be bought over with a few flattering words? But I don't get it. Chaoga is my daughter and she's just been attacked. What's wrong with me taking her home to rest and letting my family take care of her? Jiang Longtan voiced his reasonable doubts. What's wrong with that? He was Lu Chaoga's legal guardian. Although Lu Chaoga was an adult now, she was still registered in the national file system. If he wanted to take Lu Chaoga home as her foster father, everyone would support his decision. She's your daughter and my girlfriend. She's half of my spine, the air and sunshine of my life. Just now, right under my nose, an off-road vehicle rushed over and almost took her away from me. Can you understand how I feel right now? Can you understand how I feel when I've lost her and found her again? I don't want to be apart from her for even a second. I want to keep an eye on her and make sure she's fine. Otherwise I'll have nightmares at night. Lu Chaoga darted a strange look at Fang Yan and thought that he was the only one who could say something like that. Qiang Longtan said after some hesitation, That's a very convincing reason. Thank you for your consideration. But I'm still taking Chaoga with me, said Qiang Longtan. At a time like this, what she needs most is her parents' company, not a bastard who's trying to take advantage of her. Chaoga, shall we go back? Lu Chaoga shook her head and said in a hoarse voice, I'm going back to school. This was the first time she had turned down Qiang Longtan's arrangement. He had never done something like this before. Qiang Longtan was stunned. He didn't expect Lu Chaoga to stand on Fang Yan's side so firmly. It's quieter there, Lu Chaoga explained. I understand. Qiang Longtan nodded with difficulty. Take care of yourself. Dad, how can you let him take Chaoga away? Jiang Zhulu shouted, This is a despicable and shameless person. When we came in just now he was... Shut up. Qiang Longtan snapped, Go back. Qiang Longtan shifted his gaze to Lu Chaoga again and said, Shall we talk? Although I know that the timing isn't right and the environment isn't right, there are some words that I don't want to let pass the night. Sure, Lu Chaoga said. The unrelated people all left and the private room was cleared. Fang Yan took off his coat and draped it over Lu Chaoga's shoulders before he left as well. Qiang Longtan only wanted to talk to Lu Chaoga. Are you thirsty? Qiang Longtan asked. He went to the fridge in the corner of the private room and took out a bottle of cold water. Holding it in his hand he said, The water's too cold. Drink it later. Lu Chaoga didn't say a word. She only gripped Fang Yan's coat tightly, hoping to get some warmth. Qiang Longtan found the remote control for the air conditioner and turned it on. The room quickly warmed up as the ambience was released. Only then did Qiang Longtan sit down across from Lu Chaoga. Looking into Lu Chaoga's eyes he said honestly, I know. You blame me and you hate me. The surprise in Lu Chaoga's eyes flashed away and she returned to calmness in an instant. This opening was too direct and she was caught unprepared. You've always suspected me. You suspect that your parents' death is closely related to me. You don't have to deny it. I know what you're thinking from the strange and wary look in your eyes. A long time ago I wanted to find an opportunity for us father and daughter to sit together and have a good chat. I'll tell you my thoughts to clear up your misunderstanding of me. But I'm usually too busy with work and so is yours. We don't have much time to eat together. I wanted to find a time to talk alone, but it's been delayed until now. Qiang Longtan shook his head and smiled bitterly saying, As a father I've failed in my duty. I've let down your parents' trust. Actually it's been so many years. Some things can't necessarily be explained clearly. What happened to your parents still pains me to this day. They were my best friends and talented business partners. Chaoga, you don't know business so you don't understand how great their departure was for me and Longtu Group. We haven't been able to recover to this day. Yes, we haven't been able to recover to this day. We could have done better. We should have been number one in all of Wuxia. But we used to be the world's leading biotechnology company and now we're being surpassed by others. Can you understand how I felt back then? It wasn't just my hard work, it was your parents as well. We drank and talked so many times and we were both filled with hope for the future. We said that we wanted to do our best to be the best number one in the world. But because of their departure I couldn't accomplish the goal I set on my own. They're very important to me and just like you, I don't want to be separated from them. I didn't want to talk about it in front of you because I thought it would be too cruel for you. You're just an innocent girl and you shouldn't have to bear all that. You shouldn't have to bear all that pain. I hope that you can forget it, just remember it but not be sad. I hope that you can become a member of the Jiang family. We'll do everything that parents should do for you. We'll give you everything that your parents can give you. I hope that we can take care of you and protect you for them. I hope that everyone can live a peaceful and happy life. Even if it's a little incomplete, everyone will still be happy. I hope that I can do that for you. Qiang Longtan unscrewed the cap of a bottle of warm water and handed it to Lu Chaoge. Why would I hurt them? If it's for the sake of profit, they can stay alive and help me lead the research team. Our Longtu group can become number one in Wuxia and number one in the world. Isn't that more beneficial to me? Lu Chaoge opened her mouth but she didn't know what to say. He had this kind of ability. He could always see through your thoughts and accurately pinpoint your acupuncture points, making it impossible for you to have any thoughts of resistance. You're one with us. You're a member of the Jiang family and also a member of our Longtu group. You're my daughter Jiang Zhuliu's sister. I know that you don't want to marry him. If you don't want to, then don't. It's been so many years, when have I ever forced you? Have I ever said anything harsh to you? No, Lu Chaoge said. Ren Jin often said that they should be together, but Qiang Longtan had always been against it. Although you've never been to the company, you still hold 49% of Longtu Group's shares. This is the distribution plan that your father and I discussed when we founded the company. Your parents are gone, so you're their only legal heir. So, these 49% shares will automatically be transferred to your name. I've tried to persuade you many times. When you were in school, I told you to study business management so that you could take on more responsibilities in the company. After you graduated, I also persuaded you to work at Longtu Group. You could be my assistant for the time being and I'd teach you everything I know about management. What I said is still valid. Whenever you want to return to Longtu, you can do so. I told you it's mine and it's yours as well. Even Jiang Zhulu isn't as influential as you are in Longtu. I know there will be rumors, but they're just rumors. I've always ignored them because we're a family. Because we're a family, if we try to explain such a strange thing seriously, it'll pull the distance between us even further. Chaoge. Qiang Longtan looked at Lu Chaoge lovingly and said helplessly, I know you're not happy in the Jiang family and I know you're under a lot of pressure. To be honest, I'm not happy either and I'm under a lot of pressure. I've tried my best to be good to you, but I've found that it doesn't make us closer. Instead, it's like a double-edged sword that cuts you and makes you feel like you can't breathe. It also cuts me and makes me feel like all my efforts are in vain. Qiang Longtan looked at Lu Chaoge and asked, Chaoge, what do you think I should do? Tell me, what should I do? Jiang Longtu was usually strict, powerful, wise, controlling and tolerant. It was as if there was no problem in the world that he couldn't solve, and he wouldn't change his expression even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. At this moment, Qiang Longtan was anxious and exhausted, which was something he had never shown before. Lu Chaoge's mind was in a mess. What was the truth? What was the cause of her parents' death? Was it really because they met some local scum on a holiday and were killed by them? Where was her aunt? Could it be that her suspicion of the Jiang family and her hatred for Qiang Longtan were all wrong? That they weren't the murderers she thought they were? Was that their concern for her genuine and all those years of care were also genuine? Countless questions swirled in her mind and she couldn't find an answer to them. Qiang Longtan smiled and said, You're suspicious because we haven't done a good enough job. Time will tell a person's heart. Don't be in a hurry to make a decision. Alright, I think that guy outside must be getting impatient. He doesn't look bad, he has the guts to resist my arrangements, which is much better than Jiang Zhulu. If he treats you badly, tell me and I'll make him suffer too. Chapter 156. You shouldn't have come. Jiang Zhulu sat in the back seat and said calmly. Why? Qiang Longtan had his eyes closed and his voice wasn't very clear, as if he was in a half-asleep state. Lu Chaoge suspects us. She has always thought that the Jiang family is the culprit behind her parents' death. She was attacked and you immediately ran over. What would she think? What would others think? Jiang Zhulu raised his doubts. Oh, then tell me, what would she think? What would others think? Lu Chaoga thinks that you rushed over in a hurry to distance yourself from this matter, which is a blatant lie. The others probably have the same thoughts as Lu Chaoga. Jiang Zhulu analyzed. Lu Chaoga is my favorite daughter. She was in such a big accident and I received one call after another. If I didn't rush over, what would she think? What would others think? Qiang Longtan asked. This sudden incident had indeed pushed Qiang Longtan into a dilemma. Just as Jiang Zhulu suspected, as soon as something happened to Lu Xiaoga, he hurriedly ran over. It was as if he wanted to prove that he was innocent and that he wasn't the one who did it. However, if he didn't come, Lu Xiaoga and the others would have other thoughts. His most beloved daughter had been in such a car accident and so many people had called to inform him of the situation, but Qiang Longtan didn't care. What was he running away from? Jiang Zhulu thought about it and said in annoyance. So, the father and son of the Jiang family can't be good people? Whether we did it or not, we can't get rid of the suspicion. Yes. Qiang Longtan said. That's too much. Who bullied you? The difference between a good chef and an ordinary chef is that they can control the degree of cooking, the degree of heat and the degree of seasoning. If a big fire is too bad, a small fire will make it better. If it's too tasteless, it's too salty and hard to swallow. Qiang Longtan said. Jiang Zhulu looked into his father's eyes and asked, What do you want to say? I've acted. Jiang Zhulio's expression instantly became stiff. Lu Chaoga's clothes had been soaked by the rain and her whole body was in pain. It was difficult for her to even walk normally. Under the arrangement of the middle-aged police officer, the two of them made separate statements and then they were released to rest. Fang Yan wanted to send Lu Chaoga to the hospital, but Lu Chaoga refused. She just wanted to go back, take a bath, change into clean clothes and have a good sleep. She just wanted to go back, take a bath, changed and have a good sleep. The school gave this house to Lu Chaoga and Lu Shuaga hat. The school gave this house to Lu Chaoga, but Lu Chaoga had never lived in it. She didn't want to waste the space, so she planted a lot of flowers and plants in the yard. Sometimes when she was really bored, she would come here quietly and cut a pot of flowers or cut a few pieces of grass to give her body and mind a place to relax and rest. Later, Fang Yan appeared. Because of his innovation, he offended Li Mingqiang and the others, so he didn't even get a single room in the school. In order to buy people's hearts, Lu Chaoga offered to lend him the house temporarily. After Fang Yan moved in, Lu Chaoga didn't come here easily to avoid arousing suspicion. Soon Fang Yinying and Fang Haohan also moved in. Fang Yan parked the car in the parking lot, then quickly walked over to open the door of the back compartment. Lu Chaoga sat in the seat and couldn't move. Several times she wanted to stretch her legs, but she twisted her ankle and waist. She was in so much pain that she gasped. I'll carry you, Fang Yan said. No need. Lu Chaoga refused. Although it was late at night, there would still be teachers and students in this area. If Fang Yan carried her back and met familiar teachers or students, they wouldn't be able to clear their names even if they jumped into the Yellow River. Do you have any other choice? As Fang Yan spoke, one of his hands had already reached under her calf, and the other hand was holding her waist. With a little force he lifted Lu Chaoga's voluptuous body. I'm doing this for your own good. Fang Yan closed the car door with his foot, then pressed the lock button on the key and walked quickly to the small courtyard where they lived. Whatever he said would happen and what he feared would happen. Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga were afraid of meeting any acquaintances. They didn't expect to meet Li Mingqiang, who was also coming out of the parking lot, when they just got out of the parking lot. Lu Chaoga buried her face in Fang Yan's chest, pretending that no one could recognize her. Fang Yan couldn't avoid it, so he could only smile at Li Mingqiang awkwardly. Li Mingqiang was stunned for a moment, then he walked quickly to Fang Yan and asked, Mr. Fang, did you just come back from outside? What's wrong with Principal Lu? Are you okay? Lu Chaoga really wanted to die this time. Fang Yan also felt that this old guy didn't know how to speak. At this time, couldn't you pretend that you didn't recognize who this woman was? Did you have to expose him in public? Principal Lu's leg was injured. Can't walk. Fang Yan explained. Injured? Is it serious? Do you want to send him to the hospital? Li Mingqiang asked with a worried face as if his important family was injured. Fang Yan looked at him with doubt and immediately understood his mind. Fang Yan was able to negotiate with Zheng Tianqing successfully, thanks to the video provided to him by Li Mingqiang's son, Li Yang. At that time, Li Yang recorded the video just to please Jing Guodong, but he didn't expect to be interrupted by Zhou Xian, who suddenly rushed in by mistake. At that time the scene was too chaotic and Li Yang forgot about the video. Later, when the incident broke out and Zhou Xian was wronged and left, Li Yang didn't dare to take out the video. For some reason he didn't destroy the video. Later, on the top of Xianxia mountain, Jing Guodong, Li Yang and Qin Tao were killed, and Fang Yan went down with a rattan rope to rescue them one by one. From that time on, Li Yang and Qin Tao's attitude towards Fang Yan changed, but because of this, there was a gap between them and Jing Guodong. The distance between the three people was getting farther and farther. After Fang Yan found Li Yang and Qin Tao, he did some ideological education work and Li Yang finally gave the video to Fang Yan. At that time he gave Fang Yan a 500G hard disk. When Fang Yan took it he was shocked, thinking that Jing Guodong was so heartless that there was so much evidence in the hands of Li Yang. Later when he opened it he found that it was just a video of a few minutes. Out of the same mentality he walked into Zheng Tianqing's office with the 500G hard disk. When Zheng Tianqing took the hard disk his heart was probably beating very fast, right? Although Fang Yan didn't admit it, it wasn't difficult for Zheng Tianqing and Jing Guodong to guess the source of the video. Li Mingqiang lost Zheng Tianqing's trust, and his position as the head of teaching was in jeopardy. Zhou Xian, who had been expelled from the school, returned in a high-profile manner and became his assistant. This arrangement made him even more worried. Therefore it was a very urgent matter to find another life-saving thigh to hug. However, in the whole of Rosefinch Secondary did he have any other choice? Now it was not strange that he treated Fang Yan and Lu Chaoge like this. It's not serious. I just need to apply some medicine, Fang Yan said. Lu Chaoge didn't say anything. Since she didn't say anything from the beginning she might as well keep silent. If she spoke at this time, it would be easier to fall into an awkward situation. Yes. Hurry up and apply the medicine. Li Mingqiang said. I have some golden chrysalis muscle nourishing powder at home. It is said that it was personally made by the Dr. King Qin Luo, using wild golden chrysalis. I will go back and get it. You help Principal Lu apply it. With Principal Lu's character and appearance, it would be a pity if there was a scar on his leg. This is a big deal and it can't be delayed. Fang Yan could not reject the other party's good intentions. Moreover, if Li Mingqiang could stand on Lu Chaoge's side from now on, it would also give Lu Chaoge a big help in Rosefinch. Besides, Fang Yan did Li Yang a favor. Thank you, Director Li, Fang Yan said with a smile. We are all colleagues, no need to be polite. Li Mingqiang waved his hand and said. You send Principal Lu back to rest, I will go back and get the medicine. I will send the medicine to you later. After Li Mingqiang finished he trotted to the front. Fang Yan shook his head gently. Everyone's life was not easy. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen had already had dinner and were doing the routine standing training in the yard. Seeing Fang Yan coming in with a woman in his arms, both of them were surprised. They hadn't seen each other for a while and junior martial uncle's behavior was so open. Fang Yingying hurriedly greeted him and said, Junior martial uncle, do you need my help? Yes. Fang Yan said. With Fang Yan's affirmative answer, Fang Yingying hurriedly ran over to help Fang Yan carry Lu Chaoge. Fang Yan turned around with Lu Chaoge's body in his arms, avoided Fang Yingying's kindness and said, Help me close the door. Fang Yingying was stunned for a moment. Just this. He was stunned for a moment and hurriedly ran over to close the courtyard door. Fang Yan came to the living room with Lu Chaoge in his arms. Looking at her wet clothes he said, Take a bath and change your clothes first. When Director Li comes I will help you apply the medicine. Since he has the golden chrysalis muscle nourishing powder, we shouldn't refuse his kindness. After saying this he realized that the real problem had appeared. Lu Chaoge couldn't take a bath and there was no change of clothes. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.